Has a friend ever done or said something that just straight up ended the friendship? What happened? I was playing video games with my best friend while my wife was sitting beside me, reading a book. She was happy just to be spending time with me. My friend had a baby who was not even a year old, and he placed the child in a bouncing chair while we played. He mentioned that the baby loves the chair and spends a lot of time in it, so he continued playing. The baby started to whine a bit, but my friend ignored it. I thought we would reach a good stopping point in the game and he would then attend to his child. However, several opportunities to pause the game had passed, and the baby was now fussing even more. My friend then asked my wife to feed and change the baby, saying that the baby was probably hungry and had soiled his diaper. I was shocked by his request and turned off the game, suggesting that he should take care of his own child instead of playing all day. My response was perhaps a bit harsh, but he seemed upset that I had told him to prioritize his child over gaming. We left soon after, and haven't spoken to him in 3 years. Another story involves a former best friend of over 6 years who contacted my ex-girlfriend the day we broke up. He sent her a message asking if she wanted to hang out at his house. At the time, he also had a girlfriend who was pregnant with his child. My ex showed me and his girlfriend the messages, but decided to confront him together. We showed up at his place, and as soon as he saw the three of us, he knew he was in trouble but tried to act surprised. He kept defending himself by saying his little brother, who was only a kid, had sent those messages to my ex. In the end, his pregnant girlfriend left him, and he's now paying child support. He moved out of state a month later. My ex and I reconciled and are now married, 3 months into our marriage. Damn, looks like your best friend was the only one who took that L. Everyone else took a dub. Well, except for the mom. Story 2. I spent an entire day using my truck and trailer to help a friend transport tables, chairs, and a large archway to the church for his wedding. I was supposed to be a groomsman. He thanked me for the help and gave me $20 for the gas, but then he asked if it would be okay for Brent, his soon-to-be wife's best guy friend, to take my spot in the wedding party. He wanted to see if any of her cousins had backed out and if there was an open seat somewhere. This was the day before the wedding. I had been best friends with this guy since kindergarten, but his wife didn't like me because I knew about her past from a different group of friends. This was her attempt to push me out. He waited until the last minute to ask for my help because no one else would assist him. I haven't spoken to him since. And I heard that his wife quit her job and spends her days at home while he's at work. They seem to deserve each other. Another story involves a friend whose house I've visited a few times for game nights. These nights usually involve drinking and playing cards. However, one evening he hit me because I accidentally touched his hat. What surprised me most was that they didn't even apologize. It felt like I was back in high school. It was truly unbelievable. I gave them time to realize what had happened, but it took the person 3 months to notice we were no longer friends on social media. She's now trying to add me back, but I'm not interested. Another story is about an ex-friend who started asking me for inappropriate images, using the excuse that he was joking. This was out of character for him, as we had been friends for many years. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt and made it clear that if he didn't stop, I would end our friendship. So one day I received an image text from him. It was a picture of his Johnson outlined in gym shorts, followed by a sad attempt at fishing for compliments and a pathetic backpedal. Our friendship of over 10 years ended, but not before I expressed my disapproval and blocked him. Story 3. I stayed overnight with one of my best friends. Throughout the night, she was on her phone, not paying attention to anything I said. I tested this by saying something that couldn't possibly be funny, and she laughed without looking up from her phone. This has been an ongoing issue for about a year. She wanted to go to sleep early because she was tired, so I lied and said I needed to go home. She was fine with it, as all she seemed to want was to sleep or text. Not even an hour after I got home, I saw her Snapchat story showing her at another friend's house, drinking and having a great time. It was hurtful that she did this and didn't care if I saw it. That was when I decided we were no longer best friends. Still feel sad about it because we had been close since junior high, but some people change for the worse. Another story is about my cousin and me. We were inseparable as teens. After he returned from his mission, I visited him for a few days, excited to see him. I paid for all the fun activities we did together. However, when his childhood friend and I tried to get him to go for a walk to a cave we used to visit, he said some hurtful things to me, including hurtful remarks because of my identity. I didn't say a word as I drove him home immediately. I told him to get out and I haven't spoken to him in the 8 years since then. Another story is about a girl named Alice, who was my best friend for several years. I just ended a relationship with a guy who developed a bad habit, leading to our painful breakup. I started dating a woman I met through Alice. Before I started spending time with this woman, Alice was becoming increasingly territorial. Eventually, our relationship became more serious and Alice called my girlfriend and told her a lie about something I had supposedly said. Fortunately, my girlfriend knew better and called me immediately. I was able to clear up the misunderstanding and mend the situation. However, my friendship with Alice was over as soon as I found out what she had done. Story 4. My husband had a best friend for over a decade. He asked this friend to be his best man at her wedding, and the friend agreed. 2 weeks before the wedding, the friend asked if he could bring a date. We were surprised because we didn't know he was dating anyone. We inquired and said, sure. It turned out that the date was the wife of one of our mutual friends, with whom he was having a fling. We all disliked her, but his intention to bring her as his date was the end for my husband. The friend said he wouldn't come to the wedding if he couldn't bring the woman he was cheating with. That was a deal breaker, and they haven't been friends since. I ended a friendship with someone who told me, your problem is you have too much humanity. You care about people too much. When I asked if she cared about her fellow human beings, she replied, don't know them. Why do you think I carry a weapon? We were in a heated discussion, and I needed a break. The look of triumph on her face, as if she had broken me and won the argument, was enough for me. Her winning was more important than our friendship, and I realized she was not someone I wanted to know. She had admitted to me that she lacks empathy and compassion. I should have taken her seriously. I thought she was being hard on herself, but I was wrong. Another story is about a surprise birthday party we planned for a friend. Let's call her BG, birthday girl. We found out it was her dream to have a surprise party, as she had never experienced one before. My husband organized a big gathering at another friend's house, invited lots of people, and we bought plenty of food and even barbecue equipment. We went all out to make it special. BG accidentally found out about the party a few weeks beforehand and was thrilled, even breaking down in tears because no one had ever done something like this for her before. However, 2 days before the party, she texted my husband saying she had changed plans and was going bowling with another friend instead. She invited us to join her. We were shocked and upset, as many people were already committed to coming to the party. We went ahead with the party without her, and she sent us angry messages because we didn't show up for the bowling. As a result, no one is friends with her anymore. Story 5. I was friends with my best friend since we were kids, until right around when I graduated from college. It was exceptional at what he did and landed a high-paying job immediately after graduation from a top 10 university in his field. With a 3.9 GPA, graduating with honors, he came from a loving family with supportive parents and siblings. He was a completely ordinary guy. However, after graduating, he didn't know how to manage his money well. He started spending money on escort services weekly and experimented with bad habits. Our friendship drifted apart due to his habits, and I later learned that he had taken his own life shortly before he moved overseas. Another story from my past involves a guy I'll call Alex, and it took place when we were both teenagers. Alex was a band enthusiast, infatuated with the girls in the color guard and a particular girl in his band group. I was more introverted, expressing myself through punk music, and I had a crush on him that lasted over a year. Our mutual friends were aware of my feelings and encouraged me to pursue a relationship with him. I confessed my feelings to Alex the day before this incident, and I built up this fantasy of what our relationship would be like. He gave me an honest answer, which I respect now, but back then, I didn't want to accept his rejection. At the start of lunch, I sat down next to Alex, and he acted as if nothing had happened the day before. I couldn't pretend everything was normal and confronted him. I expressed how I thought we would be great together, and I said something along the lines of, I can't keep living like this, just being your friend. He responded, I don't live. I don't care. I was embarrassed and ran to the bathroom to cry. In my mind, I thought I loved him because he made me feel normal. Alex and someone I thought was my friend began to torment me, saying I wasn't welcome and calling me a loser. I heard rumors that Alex had labeled me a crazy girl. We were all in the same honors classes, so I couldn't escape the tormenting without changing my entire school trajectory. The story takes a dramatic turn when the school's guidance counselor, who was friends with Alex's mom, called my dad to the school for a meeting with the administration. He wanted my dad to silence me up and make me leave Alex alone, claiming I was causing trouble for one of their brightest students and threatening to involve the police with the surveillance footage. After that day, I was hospitalized 3 times for attempting to end it all. I had a panic attack where I almost hurt Alex, and I openly cried in front of people I barely knew at school. The tormenting continued, and I eventually had to move towns and change schools to escape it. I've forgiven Alex and made peace with what happened. I've since found religion, and I'm on medication. The positive outcome is that a friend from that time has become a partner, and we recently expressed our love for each other. Damn Alexes. Story 6. I have a recent and serious event in my life. A former friend, whom I've known for years, is my neighbor, and we grew up together. He was a normal person with good morals until he discovered social media. He used YOLO on Snapchat and Instagram, mainly Snapchat. During this time, his parents were often not at home or busy with their baby, leaving him with a lot of free time, which he spent posting on YOLO. Before social media, he had an odd fascination with the Joker character and would act strangely towards strangers and people he knew, including his girlfriend, which eventually led to their breakup. He posted disturbing content on Snapchat, and I grew tired of it. He even made threats to harm others. I took screenshots of his posts and showed them to the school administration for help. He was suspended for a significant period and stopped his harmful behavior. I'm no longer friends with him because I can't risk him finding out and potentially hurting me. Another story involves a girl I helped when she was going through a very difficult time. I offered her a place to stay, provided food, and ensured she attended school. I lost many of my old friends in the process, but prioritized their safety. Over the years, we've had disagreements and more bad things happened to her. I moved to another state for work to address my own health issues. I've struggled with my mental health longer than I've known her, but I didn't want to burden her with my problems. I moved back to my hometown last year to help my ill father and support her. Recently, my state has worsened significantly. I've experienced dark thoughts, instability, and extreme loneliness. I reached out to my friend, asking if I could talk to her about how I was feeling. I sent 2 messages but received responses like, "I can't deal with this," and "You're so pushy, I hate it, you're my friend." She said she'd text me when she felt like it. My only real friend of the past 5 years, whom I care for deeply and would support no matter what, no longer talks to me because I've been struggling with health issues and sought her support. Story 7. When I saw my friend Juan chase after someone with a weapon because of some trouble he was getting involved in, it was a turning point in our friendship. I had known Juan since kindergarten, and we were very close as we grew up. We were somewhat outcasts in our class, known as the kids who always excelled academically, along with our other friend, Nick. We shared memories like visiting the circus and creating a comic book together about a character named Tom. Taking turns to draw and continue the story, it was a cherished pastime. I wish I still had that notebook, but it was taken from us in the 4th grade and never returned. Juan and I had sleepovers almost every weekend, and he always joined my family's camping trips during the summer. He was like a brother to me, as I was an only child. In the 6th grade, our parents transferred us out of our grade school because they were dissatisfied with the administration and believed we could receive a better education elsewhere. Despite living on the south side of Chicago, I ended up at a school on the north side with another friend, Manny, while Juan attended a school closer to his home. Juan and I still spent time together, but our paths began to diverge. I noticed that his new school was influencing him, and by the 8th grade, he had become part of a group. At the time, I was deeply interested in graffiti and rap music, so we still shared common interests despite the changes. The last time I saw Juan was at his graduation party. After the family celebration, we hung out with some of his neighborhood friends. Then, Juan and I decided to go for a walk. I had a backpack filled with spray paint, so we headed to the train tracks near his house to tag trains and walls. I painted my name and he tagged his group symbols. While we were painting a wall, we heard a voice from below. The man was yelling at us, and it infuriated Juan. I'd never seen him like that before. He seemed like a different person. He started chasing the man, and instinctively, I followed. The man ran, and Juan pursued him with me trailing behind. After a few minutes, Juan lost sight of the man and stopped. When I caught up to him, I saw an angry look in his eyes and realized he was holding a weapon. It was then that I understood this was not the one I had grown up with. He talked about finding the man with a few others as they had unresolved issues. I managed to convince him to let it go for the time being and return to relax. We did, and I stayed at his house just as I had done many times before. However, after that night, I wanted no part in the lifestyle he was embracing. Although we still spoke on the phone occasionally, we never hung out again. As we entered high school, we completely lost touch. I often thought of him and wondered what had become of him. So I searched for him in Google and Facebook, but never found any results. Until a few years ago, when I finally located him by using his middle name in a search, I discovered several photos from his various encounters with the law, mostly for possession. It saddened me, as he was a very intelligent person, but I was also relieved that I hadn't followed the same path. Story 8. I was part of a large friend group where everyone knew each other. A couple of them decided to invite Troublemaker to hang out with us. Troublemaker began to openly insult one friend, using derogatory language about his orientation. My girlfriend was the first to stand up for her friend. Troublemaker got upset, refused to apologize, and left. Some friends were rude to my girlfriend, me and our friend, blaming us for causing drama. Our friends stopped hanging out with the group because it was clear they were siding with Troublemaker. During another gathering, Troublemaker showed up with his friend, whom we'll call Gremlin. Gremlin made inappropriate comments to my girlfriend, challenging me with his gaze. After he described what he'd do to her if he found her in a dark alley, she told him off and we left. Later, a friend texted me, telling us not to hang out with the group again. The others started ignoring us. Then the intimidation began. They would show up in groups at places they knew we'd be without speaking to us, just being loud and disruptive. This behavior got them banned from many local spots after numerous complaints. About a year later, a former friend reached out while intoxicated, feeling lonely and guilty. The friend group had fallen apart after they were banned from our usual hangouts. Blame was thrown around, causing constant drama, and the group split into factions until they all disliked each other. Troublemaker moved away, and Gremlin ended up in jail. My girlfriend and I had no interest in reconciling with the group. Another story involves my best friend from high school, who had strange authoritarian tendencies. He never admitted when he was wrong, blindly supported the US government and police, and believed grass was the worst thing imaginable. He once said that anyone who had ever used grass should be imprisoned for life to protect them, knowing that my family and I had tried it. The last straw came after my first attempt to end it all. He showed no emotion when I told him I had tried to harm myself. He only asked if I'd used grass within the last month. When I said yes, he blamed it on the grass and refused to discuss it further. I wasn't sure how to feel that day, but we didn't speak much after that. Our families used to be very close, so this was significant. I messaged him during my weak point years later, and he actually apologized for the first time since I'd known him. We're not friends now, but I'm glad the resentment is gone. Story 9. My best friend in college was a girl named Gina. We got along well, often getting together to have deep conversations while enjoying a few drinks. We did everything together, exploring and experiencing the world on our own for the first time, typical college activities. Gina enjoyed tripping and living in shared communities with people she considered deep. I preferred drinking, partying, and having my own apartment with a private room and bathroom. I don't think there's anything wrong with either preference. She left to pursue a law degree in a city about 3 hours away, while I started working as a chemical engineer in her college town. We stayed in touch, but I knew she was busy with school, which wasn't a big deal. I visited her a few times, but she never came to see me. I didn't mind at the time, but later I noticed this pattern. When she returned for a summer internship, I made an effort to text her, call her, and take her out for happy hour at bars she chose. I treated her to dinner at trendy restaurants and paid for everything since I had a job and made a good income. However, every time we met up, she would complain for hours about drama or school, and I couldn't get a word in. I was always the one asking to hang out, while she prioritized different guys each month. Once, while out with other friends at a bar for a birthday celebration, I dressed up a bit more than usual with cute lashes and a nice dress. I felt great and happened to run into Gina. I overheard her telling my boyfriend, now my husband, that she didn't want to hang around because I was wearing lashes. There's nothing wrong with putting a little extra effort and feeling beautiful, so her comment wasn't called for. Eventually, I grew tired of making all the effort. I stepped back and decided to wait for her to initiate hanging out. She ended up moving back to finish her law degree at her college in the town where I live. 6 months went by, and I received a single text from her asking if I was mad at her because her sister had acted silly the last time we hung out. She also asked if I had any attractive friends who might be interested in a no-strings-attached relationship with her. I never responded and haven't spoken to her since. It's been about 3 to 4 years now, and I'm still really sad about it. I thought we had a great friendship, but I valued her much more than she valued me. Yeah, one-sided always hurts. Story 10. I had a friend who was in an unhappy situation. He lived at home and had just been laid off from a job he loved. He was pretty unhappy. The problem was that he was difficult about it. He had no education and was incredibly unhealthy, but he would not accept a position that paid less than $60,000 a year to start. I'd find something close to his home and that was near that pay, and he would turn it down. It was just unpleasant all the time, and I tried to be patient. I have a rule with all my friends. If you're rude to me, that's one thing, but if you're in my home and you're unreasonably rude to my other guests, then we're done. He made the mistake of bringing his negative attitude and constantly criticizing my other friend and my wife. At the end of the evening, I simply never contacted him again. I never said anything. I just ended the friendship and moved on. It's been 3 years, and if I've heard correctly from others, he's still unemployed and still lives with his mom. Another story is about my best friend of over 15 years. She had been pulling stunts for a while, but I always forgave her because she had a tough time with her parents during her teen years. In her mid-20s, a childhood friend passed away suddenly. He was more like a big brother to me and was my brother's best friend. It shocked my whole family, who were also close to her. It was an extremely hard time because he passed away so young. The funeral came and went, and she never showed up, not even a text. A week later, I received a text saying, "Phone was out of charge. So upset about last week. How are you?" I couldn't respond and explain how inappropriate that text was, so I didn't reply. It became clear that I had made the right decision to cut her off, and my parents and brother ended up in the hospital a few months after the funeral due to a series of unrelated incidents. New and old friends came out of nowhere to help me, but she never showed up for any of my family. It's been 6 years, and honestly, it was the best decision I've ever made for myself. Another story was when I was at a bar with some friends, when a guy showed up who made one of my friends, let's call her Anne, uncomfortable. There's a history between the guy and Anne that isn't my place to share, but she had recently filed a police report against him. When Anne saw him, she was clearly upset and hid in the bathroom. One of my other friends spoke to the bouncer and got the guy kicked out. Now here's the unfortunate part. One of our other friends, Sarah, started loudly telling the table that Anne was overreacting and that it was unfair that the guy got kicked out. I was shocked and walked away from the situation. The next day, I texted Sarah and told her that I really wasn't okay with what she had said and tried to explain why it was problematic. She refused to apologize, continued to blame Anne, and then, once we all stopped talking to her, she texted Anne and blamed her for ruining her year. I blocked and deleted her information. Story 11. I met Lisa at university while we were both working on our master's degrees. We lived in the inner city and would often hang out, sharing a love for good food and enjoying a bit too much wine. However, things changed when she became pregnant and moved to the suburbs. It took me almost 2 hours to get to her new place using public transport, and even longer on weekends. Despite the inconvenience, I made consistent efforts to visit her for birthdays, dinners, her baby shower, and just to spend time together. I even babysat a couple of times. Occasionally, I would stay overnight, but most of the time, I would return home. One night, I missed the last tram home by just a few seconds and found myself stranded in a sketchy area late at night. I had to wait for an Uber, which ended up costing over $100. I joked about the incident the next morning and we laughed it off. I didn't think much of it and continued to attend events at her place. Then one evening, Lisa messaged me to inform me that I was not invited to her birthday dinner that weekend and that I was no longer welcome at any of her events until I had an alternative method of transportation. She claimed that my commute home was causing her significant stress and that she was tired of me dismissing her suggestions. This was the first I had heard of any of these concerns, as we had never discussed them before. She told me I was welcome to discuss it further if I wished, but she hoped I understood why I was no longer welcome at her house. This message came in May 2018, and I never responded. We haven't spoken since, and she has made no attempt to contact me. I didn't respond because her birthday dinner had been planned for weeks, giving her ample time to discuss her concerns with me and find a resolution, rather than simply uninviting me to her events. Story 12. I had a friend whom we'll call Emily, who constantly borrowed money from me in high school and never paid me back. Each time she'd promise to repay me, spinning elaborate stories about how she'd return the money as soon as she received her allowance and then later claimed she'd already paid me back when I asked for the money. Her begging became so relentless that I stopped carrying cash to school to avoid her constant requests for money. If she heard change jingling in my pocket, she'd pester me for an hour until I lent her some money. It got to the point where I felt I had to hide any snacks I bought just to avoid her requests. Our friendship mostly ended by the next year due to various issues, including fights. However, I guess I still held on to some hope for our friendship. A mutual friend, whom we'll call Sarah, asked me if I could talk to Emily because she had borrowed a favorite belt and some money and Sarah wanted them back. My locker was right next to Emily's, so I agreed to ask. When I inquired about Sarah's money and belt, Emily's response was clear. I only repay friends. Any lingering hope I had for a friendship vanished with that statement. I told Sarah what Emily had said and offered to repay her myself, but I made it clear that I would never speak to Emily again. And I never did. 4 years of friendship ended with that sentence, as it revealed that she had never considered me a friend, only a source of money. Another story involves a friend named Jessica, with whom I was very close from 5th grade onwards. Our lives took very different paths. I had a supportive family, did well in school, and went to college far away. She dropped out of high school and started working. I was there for her when she met her first husband, through her pregnancy and her divorce. I listened as she made bad decisions and went through rebounds. I worked hard, saved money, and enjoyed spending it on travel. Once while on vacation with a mutual friend whom we'll call Taylor, Jessica sent me a 3-page email listing all the ways I had betrayed her and been a bad friend, especially by going on this vacation and other trips. I was upset, but Taylor pointed out that she hadn't received any such message from Jessica. This made me think. I replied to Jessica's email expressing my sorrow that she felt that way, stating that I did not share her feelings and wishing her well. Then I blocked her, and haven't spoken to her since. I don't regret my decision. Story 13. One of my favorite friends was getting married and looking for a house. He wanted to rent in a specific place and had a decent budget. I found him exactly what he wanted, which, due to certain must-haves, was an older house built in the 1960s. As required by New York state law, I provided lead paint disclosures when I do a rental agreement and lease. Even beforehand, I mail a pamphlet about lead. It's a state requirement. My friend had no children or pets, so there was no risk of anyone chewing on walls or windows. Lead can be found in paint sometimes, but it's not a significant health risk unless there are certain at-risk activities or individuals on the premises, or pending major construction. At the lease signing, he brought up the lead paint disclosure and the possibility that there might be lead paint in the windowsill or window areas, so his wife told him to chill out because he was making it an issue at the signing. His wife asked me my opinion and I said she was right. They should just relax and he was overreacting a bit. He took this to heart, moved in and never said anything to me again. Recently he had a kid. I loved this guy, and our families had been close growing up. I never answered his phone again. In another instance, during an argument, my friend told me that she came to my dad and stepmom's wedding because she knew I was missing my mom. My mom passed away 2 years before my dad got remarried, but my parents had been separated for 10 years before final rest. Yes, I was missing my mom, but I had invited her because she was a good friend and I wanted her there to celebrate with us, not so she could act like a surrogate mother or whatever was going through her head. I went from needing some space to ending the friendship quickly after that. She was older and I, and my mother, became good friends from the concert scene we were a part of. She got oddly clingy after my mom passed away, and that was what made me say no more. I had another friend, my own age, who apparently had a lot of resentment and jealousy pent up. which I had no idea about until it all went up one day. She was upset that I was able to go to shows and do other fun things in my city, and she was never able to. She told me I didn't understand my privilege. I get it. I'm lucky to live where I do and go to $10 to $15 shows fairly often. I also took advantage of free admission evenings at some museums when I had more time. However, I moved out of the town we'd gone to school together in and back to my hometown because of the loss of my mother. I had to explain to her that coming back wasn't my choice and that I was back home because I'd lost a parent and had to move in with the other one. We'd had plans to go to a hockey game together later that week, but she backed out because she thought I didn't respect her. So I was out the $85 I'd spent on the tickets. I'm still confused about all that. I totally understand where she was coming from, but she came to my city multiple times to do things without me, which never bothered me at all. Yet she was apparently upset that I lived here and she couldn't. Again, out of my control, and she knew that. If she had spoken to me, it would have been a non-issue, but she never did. That friendship hurts to lose. A friendship built upon jealousy will never be a long one. Story 14. My friend group wanted to sign up for an Overwatch tournament and asked me if I wanted to take part, as I used to play this game a lot with them. I said no because I wasn't feeling like dedicating myself to something like this and sweating in a game I don't like playing anymore. They still put me down as an active team member so that in case someone doesn't show up, I could sub for them. I didn't know that. And then one Friday, they just messaged me saying they really needed me to play the next day. So I had to wake up at 9 a.m. on a Saturday to play because one of their friends just decided he wasn't going to show up. I agreed because I thought they were my friends and it was important for them. I didn't want to let them down. Only 2 people showed up to train, and I had to wait until 1 p.m. for the match to start, and then played for an hour and a half. Then the same thing happened the next week. I said something about them not respecting my time and my choice not to play, but they all made it sound like a joke and just brushed it off. They also told me we were going to play against a team who's way higher in skill than us, and I suggested it would be a waste of time and we shouldn't do it. They argued and said it'd at least be good practice. When the time came to play, we were totally losing, and all of my friends were mad, telling me I wasn't healing them enough and overall being very salty. I snapped and said something along the lines of, "I told you we shouldn't have played today." And one of the guys snapped back by saying that just because I'm not good enough to play against them doesn't mean the rest are, and I just need to learn to play better. At this point, I've had enough and told them all what I think about the situation, their skill level and how they disrespected my time and used me when they needed me without prior warning, how they ignored my decision not to play in general and signed me up anyway. And during my speech, they were just laughing, talking over me, saying how I was overreacting and being too emotional over nothing. I finally realized that those people have zero respect towards me. They don't care about me, and I didn't want to dedicate myself to that friend group anymore. I removed myself from every server and group chat, removed myself from the team roster on the tournament website, unfriended everyone individually. I secretly hoped that they would apologize after all because I really thought they valued me as a friend. That was wrong. It's a bit sad, losing several friends and gaming buddies at once, but ultimately they weren't the people worth being upset about. Story 15. A good friend, my best friend for 15 years, with whom I'd made many weekend trips all across the world, invited himself for 3 months on my trip of a lifetime. I say invited himself in the sense that he said he'd taken some time off from work to join me, without asking if I was okay with that. I couldn't really say no, but I did point out this was my trip of a lifetime and I'd really had a sort of a plan. He was okay with that. He joined me in Thailand, where I'd been for a week, building up a great group of friends. He just didn't fit in there. People noticed and tried to talk with him. He didn't want to, not with me either. I decided to leave the big city and travel north. Maybe this would cheer him up. No, the bus was awful. The beds were hard, the weather too warm, the scenery too industrial, the hike too slow, etc. I let him be for a few days, hoping he'd turn around. Nope. We had a few good moments, but he never contributed any positivity. Just kept turning everything down and didn't really suggest alternatives that would make him happy when asked. After a few weeks, he gave up. I told him he needed to open up or I'd be going on alone. He didn't, so I went. This is almost 2 years ago and I haven't spoken to him since. On the one hand, I feel bad. He was a friend who didn't have any other friends. Maybe I should have tried harder. On the other hand, I'd saved for this since my teens. Will never be able to do that again and felt I deserved more respect from my friend than constant rejection and negativity. Story 16. This happened about 13 years ago. My friend and I from high school decided to be roommates in university. Let's call her Alice, and I'll be Janet. We got along really well, enjoyed the same TV shows, both were pretty focused on school and studying, and we didn't feel the need to always be in each other's space. Generally, I thought we got along really well as roommates. Eventually, I bought a house and invited her and my boyfriend to move in. It was a big house. We seemed to all get along well. One night we went out to the bar with a group of her friends that I didn't hang out with too much. Like I said, we didn't feel the need to always be together. So she had a different friend group from high school that I wasn't super close to, which was totally fine, because we got along without issue. I had let her borrow a necklace of mine that went really great with her outfit for the night. While we were at the bar, I went to the bathroom, and while I was finishing up in the stall, I heard one of Alice's friends at the sink say, "Ooh, I really like your necklace. It's so cute." Then I hear Alice say, "Yeah, Jenna let me borrow it. Don't worry, I washed it first." I was floored and hurt and walked out of the stall dumbfounded. I can't remember if her friend was still there, but Alice was. I think I said, "Wow, that was, great." I walked out. She found me later at the bar and apologized. I was hurt and couldn't help but assume she often talked bad about me behind my back with those friends. So after that, we simply drifted apart. She eventually moved out. We've talked a couple of times since then, but I'm still hurt by what happened. Story 17. When I was 15, my family moved houses to a city just adjacent to our old city. As a teenager, it was nice because I made new friends as well as continued to see friends from my old city. My parents were having a bit of difficulty selling their house, despite it having a lot of attractive qualities for young families. Anyway, I had one friend from my old city who I hang out with a lot on weekends. We'll call him Fenton. Fenton and I had been engaging in weekend activities for a while, and Fenton decided we should throw a party. Well, Fenton doesn't have a place to throw a party, so he suggests I take the spare keys to my family's house. Obviously, I tell him that's not happening. I didn't care how much teenage me wanted to party. I wasn't going to betray my family like that, especially after how the market affected them. Fenton didn't like that I said no, but reluctantly dropped the subject after realizing it wouldn't budge. Months later, my parents get a call from their realtor, who's talking frantically and sounds stressed. She had a property showing that morning for a family who was very interested in her house, so my parents were excited. The realtor shows up to the house a few hours before to set some stuff up and walks into a house with shattered windows, puddles, and stains. After doing some investigating with the neighbors, we get a description of the cars and people who were seen at the house the night before. The cars described fit the description of all of Fenton's friends' cars. I come to my parents and reluctantly tell them my suspicions. I didn't speak to Fenton after that. Story 18. I had a friend who I had practically grown up with. From age 13 onwards, we would see each other at least once a week. We often had dinner at each other's houses and sleepovers. When high school finished, our paths began to diverge. Although we would still remain friendly and he was still a part of my overall friend group, I was determined to finish university and get into a good career. He took 7 years to complete his undergraduate degree and never worked a day in the field, preferring instead to work part-time, stacking shelves at the supermarket and doing grass all day. This I honestly had no problem with, as I partake myself, and each to their own when it comes to personal ambition. Little did I know it wasn't the only thing he did, but instead he was slowly but surely getting used to other things. This made his behavior erratic at times, but I assumed the behavior was just his boredom or trying to be funny, so I let it slide. This was until one day in particular. I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 5 years and we weren't exactly on speaking terms. She had messaged me early in the morning saying my friend had sent her a very suspicious message. Basically, it was a picture with some disgusting text asking her, now that we were no longer together, would she want to get with him. I relayed this to my friend group and some of the girls in our group had received similar messages. There was also a thread in a Girls of Our City Facebook group that had hundreds of comments describing the same messages sent from my now ex-friend to people he didn't even know personally. Some of them shocked me, including videos of him. Needless to say, I lost one of my oldest friends that day. No one else in my friend group will talk to him either, so he basically lost everyone close to him. A year or so later, his family reached out to us as he had been taken and placed in a facility. Why did you need to cut off a friend? I feel in most of my friendships, I'm the one doing most of the legwork. For some, it's an easy decision, so say, I'll just stop. Clearly, I'm the one maintaining this relationship alive. I think it was my therapist who told me, when I complained to him about this, that maybe my friends are just happy that I'm so proactive and then don't feel the need to contact me, because they rely on me. That I will call or write eventually, maybe. The past months, I've pondered what to do about a friend back home across the Atlantic. I've lived almost 20 years in Europe, actually my new home, and for that period of time, it's been only me maintaining a relationship with a friend. During I didn't write to her, kind of as a test. For about 2 or 3 years, we had no contact. Finally, I was able to fly to my family and contacted her. Want to meet? Sorry, I'm busy. Really? Like, I know you're a single mother, but we haven't seen each other in years. And all you can say is you're busy? Another friend, same week, also hadn't seen him in 3 or more years. His wife was about to give birth, and he made 2 hours time for me. A few days after the birth, we met at his house, had lunch, walked around, said goodbye again at his place. 2 hours. I'm not asking for more. Some people like putting in the work. Others go with the flow. If they're doing it with others but not you, I think that's the bigger indicator. Story 2. My best friend in high school was a chick. She dated one of my other buddies through high school. When I first met her, I had wanted to date her, but she liked my buddy, so I moved on. Well, later on, I introduced her to my buddy, and she introduced me to her friends. I had a blast. Several years go by when we graduate. My buddy and my best friend go to college together and move in together. I go somewhere else. They don't do well together and break up. At this point, I have a girlfriend. She's great and she gets along with best friend. Several more years pass and we're still friends. She gets married, gets pregnant, has some great kids, and looks to be having an awesome life. I also got married and had kids, and anyway. Well, then we were having a conversation about how things turned out, how cool it was that we were still friends after so long. And she turns to me and says she made a bad mistake back in the day. She should have slept with me and had kids with me so I would marry her and we would grow old together. She said this while rubbing her hand on my thigh. My wife and kids, her husband and kids, were in a different room. She took her chance 8 years too late. If she had asked before dating my buddy, maybe. However, I love my family and my wife, so it was a no-brainer. She insisted and tried to kiss me. I said no. I finished out the evening and went home and haven't talked to her since. That was 8 years ago. She was my friend and tried to get me to cheat on my wife, while also cheating on her husband, while also telling me she should have trapped me when we were in high school. The person who I thought had been my best friend, who I thought had known was actually a terrible person. Story 3. We were friends for 8 years, and on top of making everyone I brought him around viscerally uncomfortable, he got accused of mistreatment. It's weird. He didn't need to tell me because I had no connection to those people or the girl in question, but he did, and made sure to paint himself as the victim and her as the liar. I believed him. Then I took him with me to a house party and had one beer and thought it would be hilarious to wrap his arms around some girl's ankles while refusing to let go while everyone demanded he stop, until he felt like letting go. I'd never seen this side of him as most of our relationship was one-on-one, so it was pretty damn surprising, concerning, and a bit frightening to witness, not to mention mortifying. He started saying stuff like, dirty girl, to describe a woman who rejected him for being a creep. Total incel crap. I would call him hysterical, telling him he can't talk about women like that, and he would argue and act like it was no big deal. Then he got accused again, and again. I couldn't bury myself in denial anymore. Guy I thought was a kind, mild-mannered, misunderstood person was a narcissistic incel at best and some kind of criminal at worst. Story 4. All we ever damn did was go to karaoke at night, get hammered, she got into fights. I babysat her, and we were both hungover all the next day. I begged her to do things during the day. Lunch, the beach, events, anything. I was so tired of drinking myself and protecting her dumb, violent, intoxicated self, so I just stopped going. After the third night didn't show, she called to yell at me about how I never want to do anything. I reminded her of the several texts asking to do things during the day. Then she did something stupid while intoxicated. Had a very public ugly cry panic breakdown, called every person we know and told them I abandoned her at the bar or something, and whatever she did was my fault somehow. You were damn 30 years old. A mutual friend and her mother were angry with me to the point of telling me off via text. About 3 months later, her mom calls me in tears, begging me to help her daughter. I gave her phone numbers and I said I was not going to be involved. Story 5. Because they were the biggest narcissists known to man. Some examples include constantly referring to themselves as iconic, gorgeous, a legend, a celebrity, posting 700 selfies with a filter every day, clearly thinking people are obsessed with them. They would call me constantly just to talk about themselves. When I would speak, they would yawn or interrupt me or just start texting on their phone and ignoring me altogether. They talked crap about other people and were really nasty to strangers, acting very entitled. They had no empathy and did not take accountability for the nasty behavior. Nothing was ever their fault. They were perfect, and it was everyone else who was the problem. They were very shallow, vain, and only wanted to hang around pretty people. They used people to social climb. I can go on, but basically every symptom of narcissist personality disorder they had. Story 6. A few years ago, a friend was asking for money every once in a while. He would pay me back within a few days, a week at most. His checks always cleared, so I didn't think much of it. Then a few months later, I found out he had been admitted to the hospital. I also found out that I was not the only one he was asking to borrow money from. He recovered just fine, thank God. I could not continue to hang out with him after this. It was not my fault what happened to him, but by giving him cash, I was unknowingly associated with his bad habits that almost cost him his life. I told him after a few weeks of recovery that he had betrayed my trust and I needed time away from him. He understood. Around a year later, he was on his way to graduating from his rehabilitation. Part of his journey was to reach out to people he had wronged. He contacted me and apologized. I accepted it and was, and still am, happy for him for cleaning up his act. But I made it known that I'm never giving him cash again. Lol. Story 7. We became very fast friends in college and were inseparable. Our morals, humor, and vision aligned perfectly, and I genuinely believe there couldn't be a better friend in the whole wide world. During our time in college, we went through a lot of issues. Family, relationship, health, finance, and I did my best to stick with her. I spent as much time with her as I could to help her out in every way possible. She was always very grateful for it. My entire life I've been a huge people pleaser. I just can't say no to anyone. She pointed out how people just wanted to use me for that very reason, and stuck with me, saying no in my stead. And I was over the moon. No one had ever stood up for me like that, until I said no to her. I just got married and moved in with my husband, who lives in a joint family. I had major physical and mental health issues. I was in the hospital for longer than I was at home. I got diagnosed with depression and was struggling through an identity crisis. I spent months in bed, speaking to no one. No one at all. And all this time, my friend was nowhere because she was occupied with her postgraduate exams. And I had no issues with that. She had her life to live. Just because I was stuck didn't mean she had to be stuck as well. Once her exams were over, she dropped me a text. She wanted to meet. I told her I needed time to gather myself. I'd only recently begun to come to terms with the major life changes I'd faced. I had a lot on my plate, and no time to meet. I proposed we do a video call, but no. She wanted to meet in person. I tried talking to her, asked her if everything was all right, if anything was wrong at all. Everything was perfectly fine. She just wanted to meet me. So she wanted me to drive to the other end of the city to meet her. She wouldn't come to me. After I knew for sure that everything was all right and there was nothing urgent, I told her no. I told her I had a lot that I needed to do for myself and was unable to make time. She snapped. All of a sudden, I was a pathetic friend. I never considered her feelings. I was absolute trash. Given the vulnerable mental health, I began spiraling again. I started believing I was a crappy person. For a week straight, I cried every night, thinking my poor actions had led to this fallout between us. My husband was my rock through all this. He let me cry all that I needed, held me all night, and constantly reassured me that I had done nothing wrong. It took me weeks to realize that I had indeed not done anything wrong. So I decided to set things straight. We had an amazing friendship, and I didn't want any sort of misunderstandings, if there were any, to change that. So I told her we should meet, and she refused. She didn't want to anymore. I gave her time. I thought maybe my refusal to meet her put her off. I gave her time, but for months she refused to meet me. I gave up on trying to meet and talk and decided to just call and set things straight. Easy, right? No. It was the worst phone call ever. For 30 minutes straight, she ranted about how all I cared about was me, but how I was the most selfish person ever, how I was the one who created this distance between us. I wanted to say a lot. I wanted to mention how it was me who got her through college. It was me who paid for all her lunches and dinners when she didn't want to burden her family. How I, on the day of my wedding, left everything and went to her place because she had a fight with her sister. And I didn't mean to rub it in her face. I didn't do anything special, because that's what friends do. They stick with you. I wanted to ask her why she was never there when I was going through the worst time of my life. But that would have been pointless. In almost a year, she had never asked me how I was doing, how things were on my end. I wanted to say so much, but I didn't. Everything she said to me left me no space for me to even try and speak. So I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to her. It's been 2 years. There are times when I wonder how she is, how her family is. I know I don't have the mental capacity to correct the image of me that she has built in her mind. And I'm not sure she wants it to be corrected either. So I say a little prayer for her and move on. Story 8. She was cruel. Yes, I was her friend between the ages of 11 and 16, so I know this sounds extreme, but she actually displayed all the signs of an oppressor. She manipulated me and lied to me, gaslit and guilt-tripped me constantly, called me names sometimes and insulted me, would turn all my friends against me if she perceived any wrong from me, straight up pestered and alienated me for a year, took advantage of me and guilt-tripped me some more when I started having trauma responses around her, and then would flip to a nice and caring friend at random, especially when I'd pull away and take me right back in. Eventually, an altercation happened where I was in gym class while injured without a doctor's note, and she yelled at me for not participating in the game to her satisfaction, i.e. running full speed like everyone else. Because my injury was hidden under my clothes and accused me of lying even though the gym teacher himself okayed me to take it easy, as long as I was participating. Then she hunted me down after class and told me we were going to have a serious talk because my behavior has to stop, like a disappointed parent scolding their child and making an insult to my intelligence. I'm really insecure about that because I'm autistic. and anyone who knows me knows to never go there. Then she strung me along with fake apologies and crap when I got really upset, and then turned around and made it out like I was the one who was causing trouble and didn't want to fix what happened. I couldn't take it anymore. We sat down a little over a month later and ended the friendship. The last time I spoke to her, she tried the whole guilt-tripping me for avoiding her and talking down to me like a parent does their child. And I flatly informed her that I don't think she knows me anymore and walked away. She tried pestering me via text and email. I had blocked her on social media, so she couldn't try that. And I fell through because I didn't respond. I'm 24 now. I've been through worse and have grown up. I've managed to heal, and distancing myself from my classmates really helped. If you're reading this and know who you are, I know that I was toxic too. I was young and immature and dramatic and didn't treat you so well either. And I'm sorry. I hope you're well, and I hope you got therapy and learned how to properly treat people with love and respect, but I will never forget how you treated me. I was already going through enough with your baloney, and I wish you never moved to town. I hope to God I never have the misfortune of ever laying eyes on you again. Story 9. Abridged version. A very one-sided friendship. She did all the taking, I did all the giving. She lied about an ex-boyfriend being cruel and lied about her bio dad trying to be cruel to her to gain favors and sympathy. When she told me this, she cried and was able to produce fake tears. She knew I was a softie and leeched off me for food. Fast forward, I pitched in with other people and threw her a pre-wedding party at work. She still didn't invite me to the big day. I was devastated. Her marriage lasted less than 1 year. Then she shacked up with some guy she barely knew and body-trapped him. I cut her off, ignored her, and blocked her. She's a psychopath. I wish I'd never met her. I want to add more details. She only gave me one donut. One singular donut out of all the times I helped her with groceries and getting her lunch and food. Her leeching went on for 2 years. She would leech off me every week, like 3 or 4 out of 7 days. She never texted me to get to know me better or have a fun conversation. Nope, it was always me being her personal refrigerator. One time she had to be absent for a few months due to something bad that happened to her. Her hand or arm was bandaged. She still leeched off of me more than usual, always telling me she was about to cry because she forgot breakfast or lunch or whatever. Then she told me she had no money, which I call BS in retrospect. She said that line many times before she got bandaged. After all I did for her, for 3 weeks or so, she bluntly ignored me and was really unfriendly and cold to me. No hello, no smile, and she gave me a weak apology, saying that she was so stressed out, which I foolishly accepted. Nah, she wasn't stressed. She just wanted to be mean to me. Her ugliness seeped through her pretty face. She was really pretty to look at, but she's ugly to the bone. Really wanted to see the good in her. I guess she never was a good person. I was blindsided at the time. I can see she's a narcissistic psychopath who wants everyone to worship her. She's just like Regina George mixed with Cersei. She thinks she's queen and all the peasants must obey her. Honestly, in retrospect, I felt I was back in high school again when I was around her. The friendship didn't feel like an adult one. It felt so juvenile. Story 10. They lacked respect and felt that they could disrespect me. Generally speaking, that's all it takes. I can accommodate our fallible nature as human beings, but when someone puts me down because they believe that I'm weaker or somehow less than them, it's time to go. This one high school acquaintance of mine had sounded the alarm and asked me to move a few states away because he had fallen in hard times, only to have this person try and pull a fast one and leave me stuck in a strange apartment in a strange state while he attempted to pick up his bags and move across the country with his new girlfriend, after having made plans to travel to North Africa beforehand. I looked that dude straight in the eye and told him he was no longer a welcome person in my life and probably moved out, and gave my job its 2-week notice, staying in a hotel for the remaining time. I learned a lot from that experience, and I wound up cutting out many more similar people like him when I got back to my home state after having worked and lived in different cities and states. Be kind, but value yourself and know your worth. If you don't set boundaries, you give people a clear signal as to what you're willing to tolerate. I'm guessing the North Africa trip got canceled. Story 11. Kept asking for money every time I visited him so he could buy drinks. He didn't want to hang out, he just wanted to get wasted. Last time we spoke, he called and screamed me out because he gave me an invite to join an exclusive torrenting website a few months prior, and I hadn't logged in 2 weeks. I guess to him at this point, I wasn't grateful. I laughed at him and told him to get off. He passed away about 18 months later. Still irks me to this day that our last conversation was an argument over some trivial crap. He was my absolute closest friend for 30 plus years. I regret having not made amends and not doing enough to convince him to stop self-medicating with drinks. I miss him so much. We were the closest of friends for 30 plus years. Depression and self-medicating got the best of him. Story 12. Not my friend, but my ex-wife's friend. Wife at the time. She was trying to spend some time away from her boyfriend with her baby because he was cruel. A few days into her staying at her house, she invites the son of a witch into my house. The same idiot she was trying to avoid. I kicked him out and told him he wasn't allowed even to the end of my driveway. Cue 3 days later, I'm heading home from work and I'm going to stop at home before I head to our local high school football game. My ex was working with a band at the time. Well, I got this phone call from her friend saying that she came home and the front door was unlocked and open, so I hauled back home. Her mattress was slightly askew, but the only thing missing was my iMac, my external hard drives and all of my software, CD and DVDs. Not even the box with cash in it that was sitting directly behind the iMac. Only the specific things that meant the most to me specifically. I knew exactly what had happened. She wasn't overly concerned and knew exactly what was missing when I got there. The police came, and since we didn't have any security footage, they really couldn't do anything, or at least they couldn't. They kicked her out and it put her on notice that if she or her boyfriend were seen near her house again, it wouldn't be pretty. We lost the entire first 2 years of my son's life in digital photos because they stole not only the computer, but the hard drive backups as well. We managed to get back 80% of them through parents, etc., but this was like 2007, so cloud backups weren't really widespread solutions at the time. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 13. I've cut lots out. One who went to the Navy lied about me to others, like his now wife saying I didn't like her to other friends that I was a user. Another sent me ugly emails from PETA featuring pictures and her husband was covertly hostile to me. Another and another because I would have ruined their relationships by being around him. Another had a weapon to me just for the hell of it one day. Another because he destroyed his mind with substance and went crazy spreading lies about me. Another because he burned our bridge in favor of his military new friends. Another because she turned out to be a crook, defrauding charities and ending roosters because she thinks all roosters are criminals. Another because they eventually revealed that they hate Jews with a passion. All my cousins and aunts because they are all awful human beings. 2 because they were engaged and confessed they wanted to ditch their partners and be with me instead. The rest are much more upsetting, not including stalkers, and I would rather not talk about them. I didn't think my standards are too high. I just think that the standards of people has fallen since before I was born, perhaps. Story 14. He would flake on me a lot in a very disrespectful way, like lying to me. One time we were both on holiday in Thailand and we were supposed to go to another city together, but he told me he was sick and decided to stay. Instead, he went somewhere else at the very last possible minute. I was angry, but decided that was fine and stayed with friends for another year. He was constantly talking down to me, ditching me, and speaking quite rudely to me. The last straw was on New Year's Eve, and we had plans. I booked a hotel in the city because I lived a good 90 minutes away, but also had free cancellation. I made backup plans because my spice senses were tingling, and again, at the very last minute, he told me he had cold symptoms. Like I could have canceled my $250 accommodation for free, and that schmuck just wasted my time and money. And all he had to do was tell me the day before 2 p.m., sorry, not feeling well. And he had the nerve to get angry when one of his dates canceled at the last minute. That hypocrite. Anyways, I blocked him and everything without an explanation, so I didn't know if he tried to contact me again. And while it hurt to let him go, it still does, to be honest. I don't have any friends at all. Being treated like that will no longer be my problem. He got karma. Justly deserved. Story 15. She taught me to have boundaries. That is, if someone doesn't bring value or happiness to your life, remove them. She was the first to go. She was the most toxic friend I've ever had. While she taught me my life wasn't over, she would go into my Facebook and make disgusting posts about me. Make terrible jokes at my mother's expense, which was ongoing. Would tell my 10-year-old all sorts of crap that a child at that age never needs to know. And got the craps when I said, how would you like it if I did it to your son? Belittled me because I'm not a speed reader. I read slower than some, especially when studying, because I need a grasp of everything and how it all links together. I was really sick with Crohn's at the time, constantly vomiting 10 to 20 times a day and pain indicator above 10. I could be in so much pain that I would have to call doctors to the motels while we were away for a shot. I helped reduce the pain, but she would still expect me to do whatever we had originally planned, or make me drive the 8 hours home because she didn't like the drive. I got called all kinds of things when I cut that friendship off, because they only saw what she wanted others to see. Only thing I'm grateful for out of that was she pushed my boundaries so far I snapped. I no longer put up with crap from anyone. Story 16. She would always tell me I was her best friend and I meant so much to her and she loved hanging out with me, etc. But would ditch me for everyone else and conveniently forget we had plans when someone else asked to hang out with her. Only time she ever actually went out of her way to seek me out was when her other friends were unavailable. This girl would travel an hour, 2 hours away by bus to see friends she saw often, but would be too tired, too whatever, she hadn't forgotten about plans to just hang out with me for a little bit. And I drive, so it's not like she had to commute very far to see me. I literally live up the road from her, and we worked at the same place for a while. She would also go about saying nasty crap about my boyfriend and put seeds of doubt in my head about him, trying to get me to break up with him. To make it worse, she did the same thing with my last very long-term boyfriend. And then when I eventually did leave him, she chose to be friends with him instead of me. I have a lot of issues with rejection and abandonment. I'm working on it, but this stuff was so toxic for me and my mental health, I just decided I was done and told her we weren't friends anymore. Still have problems I have to work through, but I think I'm taking a healthier route now. Story 17. I was going through one of the worst times of my life. Lost my grandma, who was basically the only family I ever really had that loved me. She was like my mother, because my real mother was and is cruel, neglectful and hateful, and always has been. And it's hardly been there at the same time, and I was homeless, working my back off, doing my online degree, still doing, and processing a huge ton of trauma, manic, depressed. Had a termination, and I reached out to her for help, and she just said, "Oh, sorry," and then carried on talking about how sad she was that she had to change jobs because she didn't like it anymore. I kept trying to support her for so long, and I felt so ignored and hurt that I couldn't carry on being her friend. I confronted her, and she didn't really care. Story 18. Several people had to cut out the past few years. Number 1, I always complained and I was her only friend. Felt like I was friends with JWoww. Anytime I had an opinion or criticism, it just backfired on me. Anytime I was chilling, she'd come back complaining. She was in a cruel relationship or marriage. There was a time my dog passed away and man, I was down bad. I even invited her over for her birthday, but then she got up and left while I was online for school. Comparing how she was more there for my dog than I was there for her daughter, my godchild. Like, which? Number 2, I know he was joking, but had to cut off because he asked for explicit photos as a payment. Just ended up paying him $70 and blocked everything. I may take good photos, but we ain't like that. Number 3, disorganized and messy. So messy. This girl will just secretly sleep with a lot of my friends right behind their back and in their face. Just left out of nowhere and posted on her story after making the smallest thing as a big deal. Number 4, doesn't know how to communicate for her life and is very condescending. Her tone and words were so condescending, like I hated being in duty with her. She's the cousin of number 4. Number 5, introduced this girl to my friends. Got with my ex. I believe she slept with ex-friend number 1, and she told her not to tell me. There were times at the club I heard she ran away or went opposite ways when she knew I was coming. There was a time during Halloween. The group she was with, I was long friends with them and Helen knew them way long before she did. It's like she wanted to be different. Hugged everyone but her and I remember her face, lol. Compared herself to being thick in photos but was very thin in person. Number 6, dated my sister's ex. Stopped sleeping with me for a while, then came back after he found out she cheated on him. That's what he said. He said sorry or whatever, but damage is done. Story 19. Every time I arranged to do something with him, they'd cancel at the last minute. The most recent time was earlier this year. I was driving down to visit my parents, 3.5-hour drive, and was going to meet this friend for dinner as they live near my parents. So I had a small breakfast and didn't really have lunch before setting off. When I was about 40 minutes away, they messaged me to tell me they had eaten and I should go get some food from a service station on my way down. And then they're probably only going to be available for an hour or two as they want to do other things afterwards. They then said they didn't realize we had agreed to go for dinner. They were the one that said they'd try and find us somewhere to go where they could bring their dog. This really annoyed me, because I hadn't eaten so we could go for dinner and this was maybe their 5th chance I'd given them. So I told them I'll just go home and have dinner with my parents instead, as my dad had already called me and invited me to dinner. I explained my grievances once I had gone home and have not spoken to them since. I made no attempt to apologize either. I just don't have the patience to be messed around like that. Story 20. My best friend in college for a few years. It started small, offhand remarks when someone else complimented me. The guy said a picture of me was a nice picture. She goes, "It doesn't even look like her though." Then when guys would talk to me when we were out, she'd get in front of me and talk to them herself. She'd answer for me when they asked questions, but answer if I was a nonverbal toddler. The guy would mention my dinosaur purse, ask if I was really into dinosaurs. She'd go in before I could answer and say, "Yeah, my name. It's really strange and she's super awkward too. Just my name, things." One night she intoxicatedly told me she hates being my best friend because all the guys like me because I'm prettier. When my ex and I broke up, she said, I'm actually relieved you guys weren't perfect like I thought you were. Makes me feel better about me and Jake. I spiraled into a depressive state after this breakup. I just needed my friend there. When I went to therapy because it called a hotline, I went on and on about my breakup to my therapist, but she found more interest in my friendship. She asked me if this friend brought anything positive to my life that I didn't get elsewhere, to at least balance out the negatives. I realized she didn't. My therapist told me I did not need her in my life, and I didn't have to keep tending to her and caring for her just because she's my best friend. Anyways, when I cut her off cold turkey in the midst of my recovery, she sent me a crazy long paragraph about how I was a bad friend to her for being distant and that she deserved better. The fact she made it about her when I was literally depressed and needed my friend was all the confirmation I needed. I wanted to add that the friends I have now I would pass away for. They are amazing, uplifting, loving people. I have no room for toxicity anymore, and it's so easy for me now to cut out people that start to rear their ugly head. People say that you're your friends. Based on my friends now, I find that statement to be the best compliment in the world. Story 21. This was my best friend that moved to another state. She insisted on me becoming online friends with her boyfriend. This was because one of our friends was getting married and we were going to get together soon. Around the holidays, she reaches out to me that he can't get a hold of her. In fact, her family or I couldn't. We were all legit concerned, and he told me she was taking motorcycle lessons from some guy who she referred to as an ugly cripple to him. So I reached out to this guy on Facebook, and lo and behold, she texts me, saying she is stressed with school and needs time alone and blah, blah, blah. Whatever her issues, I didn't want to get involved. She ends up icing everyone out, including her boyfriend and me. The messed up cherry on top was that the boyfriend's dad had a terminal illness for a while and was declining during this period. During this, he sadly passed away. I was there for him when she was not. When she found out about his passing, she goes on Facebook and is mad her BF didn't tell her and she found out through other people, basically making it about her. Mind you, she also had him blocked on Facebook. She then ends up blocking me, and I found out she makes a passive post saying how her BFF, me, and her boyfriend had something going on. Me and the boyfriend decided not worth confronting her and move on with their lives. Last I heard, she married and I think she had a kid with that cripple. She has since tried to reach out through mutual friends, but I immediately shut it down. So maybe she cut me off, but so glad the witch did. Story 22. Over time, I realized what a user and a narcissist she really was. I couldn't handle the double standards anymore. Her birthday, the world had to worship what she wanted, because it's her birthday. My birthday, I was supposed to go along with what she wanted it to be, even though she tried to plan a day of exactly what I specifically told her I hated about my birthday, then called me a schmuck for not being excited because sometimes you just have to accept it and do things you don't want just for the others around you. Sadly, this was just the beginning. She always insisted we weren't a couple and she had no interest in such, but anytime I got together with another girl, her jealousy was off the charts, only overshadowed by her insistence that there wasn't any jealousy. I spent thousands in taking care of things for her that I shouldn't have, and she would buy me thrift store junk. I took on a remodeling project in her house, trying to mix it with a busy work schedule, and she whined to everyone who would listen about how I'm taking too long and I'm doing a crappy job. She apparently implied that she was making it worth my while, sleeping with me, to some, but never acknowledged that you get free work done when the person has time and smiled about it. The final straw, when I realized I was nothing but a resource for her, and said it made me uncomfortable. Her reaction was to apologize for me feeling that way, not for making me feel that way, and then behind my back go full on trying to trash me. Made up stories about me that were just crazy. Her biggest mistake was telling people lies that many people, sometimes the people she was lying to, had direct proof of the truth. It was also a sign to me that some of the people she thought were her best friends forever were some of the ones showing me text messages she was sending and telling me that she has done this many times over the years to many guys. She claims to be Miss Independent, but she can't do anything on her own. She gets by in life by bickering people. She has a good job but is in bad credit card debt due to her hoarding of good deals and habits. Yes, you can be a prescription medicine user. She claims to have every medical condition known to mankind, but it's only when someone is looking. She gets migraines when it rains, and only if she wants to get out of something. She claims a gluten allergy and lactose intolerance, but eats dairy and gluten constantly. She claims to have allodynia, but goes to see a massage therapist regularly. She cries foul at how she's her own person and can make her own choices, but forces her opinions on others all the time. And God forbid you enjoy something she doesn't. When her stepfather passed, she was the only person in the world who ever lost a loved one. When anyone else lost a loved one, she took it as a chance to tell everyone about how much she misses her stepfather. She only ever saw him when she needed something. Even though I'm already rambling here, this is just scratching the surface of what a piece of crap she really is. Cutting her out was the only choice. Story 23. She was my oldest friend. Everything we did was always what she wanted to do. Even going shopping, we only went to shops she wanted to. Then when I asked her to be my bridesmaid, she put obstacles and hurdles on everything. Wasn't happy that I found my dress in the first go. Asked to wear a burqa or wetsuit for a bridesmaid's dress. She's white British and doesn't follow any religion. Every dress me and my other bridesmaid had chosen had something wrong with it. Too short, too revealing, not enough detail, basically any excuse you can think of. And she said she only wanted a dress with sleeves because she had scars on her arms. You honestly couldn't see them. Didn't actually look for any dresses herself. Didn't want the shoes we chose because she wanted to wear Converse that had bridesmaid written on them at the cost of £140. I was paying for everything. I was not paying for shoes for her. Told me I should be buying her an expensive bracelet and necklace that would match my wedding ring and the necklace my husband bought for me. The day of my hen party, she said she couldn't come because she had a headache. Then a week before my wedding, told me she couldn't be a bridesmaid because her mental health wasn't in the right place. This was done over text, not even the courtesy of a phone call. I replied with okay, just to do what's best for her and that I hope she would still come to the ceremony and reception as a guest. Never heard anything from her until the morning of the wedding when she texted that she had a great day. I was prepared to continue as friends. The final straw came when 3 days after my wedding she knew I was rushed into hospital. I got a text telling me I was a selfish friend. I'm never there for her. I didn't do anything to make her feel better about being a bridesmaid and letting her have the outfit she wanted. I gave my bridesmaids free rein to wear whatever they wanted as long as it was in the right color and didn't look ridiculous. I was a crappy friend because I hadn't even texted her after my wedding to see if she was okay. I just replied, well, sometimes you have to look after yourself and make yourself number one, a bit like you did with my wedding. Telling her I was done with playing the name show and to have a nice life. Blocked her number straight away. Didn't feel the need to read her reply if there was one. Haven't spoken to her or seen her since. Honestly, I haven't even missed her. And my husband, family, and friends have said I'm much happier without her in my life. I would always know when I'd seen or spoken to her as I'd start putting myself down a lot and questioning everything. Story 24. I'd known her for a decade at this point, but we'd only been truly friends for 7 years. As adults, we discovered we lived close to each other, but she never wanted to come over to my place. I didn't mind going to hers, but sometimes I'd ask her to come to mine. She'd always ask for favors like, can I spend the night? I don't like walking alone at night. This would be fair if I didn't literally walk home from her place past midnight every time we hung out. It's a 5-minute walk in a safe area. What really took the cake was recently. After ghosting each other for months, we chatted again. We were both jobless, but had a side gig selling photos online. It's not much, but it's better than no income at all, so it comes in handy for buying food. I mentioned this in conversation, and a week later she asked to borrow $50. I denied her request, and she brought up that I had an income while she didn't. I informed her that I hadn't made much that month, only just enough to pay rent and buy cheap groceries. Her mother is her neighbor, and I suggested she ask her mother or her boyfriend. She said they both said no and thought to ask me. She'd asked for money in the past, and I usually obliged, but in this scenario, she knew I had very little money. She said she'd pay me back when she could and to help her out, and I said I was tired of her asking for money. She sent me a paragraph that essentially was her nice way of calling me selfish and how she was struggling. I told her that I didn't wish to continue our friendship anymore, saying how she usually contacted me when she wanted something and never hung out with me anymore. I had literally seen her twice in the previous 8 months. Said we were barely friends anymore at this point. She had no right to guilt trip me. She apparently complained to my girlfriend at the time about me and really made me seem like a villain. I showed my girlfriend the chat and she agreed that I could have been nicer about it. But she also agreed that it was weird that she texted asking for money after not hanging out since the previous year. My ex-friend has always been a very sweet person, but she's quite full of herself. I wish her the best, but I don't miss her.
Have you ever had a close friend cross a line in your relationship? If so, what happened? I was dating a guy for about a month and told my best friend all about him and how much I liked him. My friend and I had tickets to a music festival, and the guy decided at the last minute he was going to come also because he liked some of the bands that were there. Went to the festival, had a great time, and got an Uber back to an Airbnb we had rented for the weekend. Walking in, the guy I was dating went to the room we were sleeping in to lay down. I go into the kitchen to get water, hear a guy yelling my name, walk in on my best friend on top of him. Uncomfortable confrontation ensues. I don't ever comment on anything ever, so this is new for me. For that reason, I gave you the most condensed version I could while trying to have the story still make sense. This happened a year ago. My friend and I had been friends for 9 years. There were a lot of comments about the drinking, and I agree it is not her main issue, and all the drinking does is make her issues worse. My immediate reaction after I walked in the room because the guy was calling my name, asking for me to come help him, when I saw him on top of him was shocking, and I was instantly furious with the two of them. Also, they both had clothes on. I said something along the lines of, I don't know what the hell is going on, but I'm not okay with this. And I'm not sure how either of you think it is okay either. She immediately got off of him, mumbled, I'm sorry, and retreated to her room and passed out. I started packing my stuff and said I was leaving because at that point I was so angry I was done with both of them. The guy talked to me for almost an hour afterwards, confused why I was mad at him, and eventually when I calmed down realized he didn't do anything wrong. She came into his room unsolicited and called for me to come back the moment it got out of hand. I didn't talk to her for months afterwards. She contacted me and asked why I was being distant. I explained what happened. She didn't remember it, or so she claimed. It's taken a long time, but we're still friends. I've created more distance between us. We don't hang out as much, and I know now she's someone I can't fully trust. As for me and the guy, we've been dating now for 10 months. A classic case of, I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm also not going to stop you. A truly supportive friend. Story 2. I had one very close friend who was never exactly a laid-back guy because he was very ambitious. I think he saw himself destined for greater things, which was never a problem. I mean, I'm an Asperger's, and I know that I'm a bit different and strange sometimes as well, so we went through thick and thin together and helped each other through rough times. But then he decided to become a banker, and he became increasingly distanced. Then he became an employee of the German central bank, and that was when things really went downhill. I drove a couple of 100 kilometers on his birthday, hoping for a fun time. It was not. He had a party, and I felt completely out of place. From his old friends, only 2 were invited anyway, and the rest were his new fancy banker friends. And then we caught him making apologies to them for us, because we came in casual clothing, not in suits that cost half a month's salary, because we were laid back and were making jokes, because we told stories about our former adventures. Explained to them that he grew out of that and that he grew up, while we, apparently, would still need time to find our way. I felt embarrassed because apparently a nurse and geologist were beneath his dignity. Next time we met, he acted like nothing happened and was back to his old self. But after a quite relaxed time, he became a bit nervous and tried to get rid of us with all kinds of excuses. This was explained when one of his banker friends joined the scene. Apparently they wanted to go out for an evening in town, but we were not good enough anymore to stay around. So I directly asked him if he felt embarrassed for us. He looked away and said nothing. And that was the end of our friendship. Story 3. This was actually pretty recent. I had a friend who I was incredibly close with years ago. I was her witness at her wedding, my name is in her marriage certificate, and I'm the godmother of her firstborn, recognized through her church as such. I even saved her life by performing CPR on her until paramedics arrived, and paid for those hospital bills. That's close. After she got pregnant with her second son, she completely removed me from her life, deleted and blocked me on all social media, changed her number, and effectively disappeared. Alienated me from our mutual friends and her family. I was worried something terrible had happened and had no way to find out if she was okay. I was in a very dark place in my life after a major spinal injury, and her just disappearing almost destroyed me. But I built my life back up and ended up in a very successful career. Met my now fiancé and finished my education. 2 years after all this, she contacted me again, apologizing for abandoning me and asking if we could rekindle our friendship, as she missed me and regrets destroying the only healthy friendship she had. I agreed, in terms that it would take some time to rebuild the trust we once had. Still haven't seen her face to face since before her disappearance, though not for lack of trying. Every plan we made for coffee dates or coming to my housewarming or my graduation or anything, she would either bail or flat out ghost me for several days after the event. When she begged to be a bridesmaid at my wedding, I caved and changed our entire setup to accommodate that, but she couldn't even show up to try on dresses or text me back about what she thought of the one I decided on. So I dropped her from the wedding. Cue very cool, very infrequent conversations with her. Until one night, she texts me asking if she could call me for some advice. It's midnight and a work night, but I agree. She goes on to tell me this wild and outrageous story of being emotionally and physically mistreated by not only her husband, but several of his family members as well. I'm not one to ever doubt things like this, so I talked her through it and helped her come up with an escape plan for herself and her children, helped her find a lawyer to contact, and gave her info for local mistreatment contacts. He plans to come and extract her and her sons to get them to a safe place the next day and called off work to do so. She ghosted me again. I didn't know her new address, so I could go and find her, but I was incredibly scared that something had happened if her supposedly cruel husband had found out somehow. A few days later, she texted me like nothing happened, being afraid she was stuck or acting out of fear. I tried to find out what was happening with the plans we had made, and she pretended that we had never spoken. Her husband was states away on a business trip, verified through social media, so that wasn't why. I investigated more and found out she lied about everything. Her life was normal and fine. She wasn't being mistreated. She claimed police reports and convictions against the other family members that, through public record, I was able to find were completely false. She lied about every single bit of it to get my attention back on her. I don't even understand why. She wouldn't have to do anything like that to have my attention. If she just showed up to coffee dates, we could have still been friends. So I reached out to her family, let them know about what she had said, let them know I'm not in a place to help her, and told her I was unable to continue our friendship because of her erratic and selfish behavior. I cut all contact, and am now wary of being so available to help anyone. I feel terrible about it all, because if there's any chance anything she said is true, I may have just abandoned her. But from everything I've found, it isn't. This was only a few months ago, and I think about it every day. I still basically stalk her life through social media, looking for any signs she may need help, just in case. I don't have many close friends or family, and I've been abandoned many times myself, so I hate feeling like I'm doing the same thing. But I can't put my life on hold and neglect my job, my spouse, and my healthy relationships, or someone like that. Story 4. Finally, question I have an answer to. Basically, I had a friend through high school. Seemed like a pretty chill guy. A bit of a schmuck, but so was I, so I just went with it. Between my junior and senior years, though, I went through some pretty major lifestyle changes. Namely, not being a schmuck to everyone I met. He, however, did not. The thing that really ended that friendship for me, though, was when he faked being depressed in an attempt to get one of our mutual friends, now my girlfriend, to date him. It was honestly one of the cruelest things I've seen a person do in an attempt to get with a girl. Somehow, though, that wasn't enough. And he still borderline stalks her to this day. Creepy as hell. I wish I had drawn the line a little sooner. Live and learn, I guess. Story 5. I had a friend who would occasionally make comments that would make me uncomfortable regarding my appearance and my smile and things. Then, increasingly over time, with alcohol and weed involved, he would start making inappropriate comments. He would purposely get me and when I was almost sleeping, say things like, "Oh no, don't fall asleep. Why don't we just tug each other off?" Kind of found it hard to believe because he had never mentioned being not straight or anything like that, although he made a lot of inappropriate jokes. I put that and the few incidents that followed down to him just being intoxicated. And one night he brought round poppers that he'd apparently found and just came right out and asked me to whistle him when we were intoxicated. I've not been sure what to do about it since. This was months ago now, but I'm still not sure if I could ever be friends with the dude and have a drink with him again. Story 6. Got him a job in my company so he could move to the city his girlfriend is in. Then he started going after my position. Friendship over. Don't work with friends. My wife did something similar. Helped a struggling friend get a job at her office. Fast forward about 3 years or so, and now that friend thinks she's a big shot. My wife will be discussing treatment with her patient, and she will listen in, and after my wife dismisses them, she comes and tells my wife what she should have done. My wife has been in the field almost 10 years. Typically, his only patients that request her has been one of the only people to get a raise during supposed pay freezes. The patients in work love my wife, but her friend is jealous, so tries to talk down to her. It wouldn't be so bad, but me and my wife are both generally over-the-top nice and do all we can to upset anyone or cause confrontation. So all this just stews with my wife and drains her a little because then she second-guesses how well she's actually doing her job. Sometimes the best way to deal with a backstabbing friend is to just let karma do its thing. Story 7. I had this super close friend. We studied at uni for 1 year until I switched to universities to study something else. However, we stayed in touch for a long time after because we were so close. I was one of the few brown or Muslim kids, and she was an inner city girl, so she wasn't awkward around me, unlike most people in uni were or are. I even had a crush on her, but she didn't feel the same way. But we were so close that didn't matter, and we stayed good friends. Helped her through a breakup with her boyfriend. Like a month later, she blocks me on Facebook. Stops responding to any and all messages or calls, etc. Never heard from her again in like 2 years as well. Then I get a message asking how I'm doing. I ask her what happened. Turns out she had a new boyfriend who was super prejudiced and didn't want her hanging out with me or even being Facebook friends with me. She literally went through her Facebook account and deleted or blocked all the brown or black people. A few awkward conversations later, I'm a bit indifferent towards her, but I wouldn't mind hanging out for old time's sake. Plans never got made, but we talked from time to time, and then she blocked me again. I didn't bother for a month or two. Got busy myself. But after I urged a mutual friend to ask her what was up, it turns out she got into a same-gender relationship and her girlfriend didn't like Muslims because Muslims hate people who are not straight. I gave up after that. Last I heard, they got married and I'm happy for her, but she's out of my life for good. Honestly, if I ever saw her again, I'd probably just ignore her. Story 8. In college, I, female, was friends with a guy who could be straight out of r/nice guys. He was very unsuccessful with women because of a lack of social skills and no self-awareness. I know that this really bothered him, and I would try to help him out, give him advice, etc. Never actually took my advice and kept repeating the same mistakes, which got progressively more annoying. But there were times that a date would stand him up, which is a really terrible thing to do, or girls would be mean to him on dating apps, so I really did feel bad and try my best to help. I know he was romantically interested in me, but I didn't have those feelings for him. Eventually, because he was bitter about my comparative success in the romance department, he made some really cruel and inappropriate personal attacks over text. That's where I drew the line. I told him that was hurtful and inappropriate, and a day later, I blocked him. I haven't talked to him since. Story 9. He told me Pepsi was crap, so I said his Arizona tea was crap. Very, very dark times indeed. Actually, I think I'm going to tell him his new shoes are lame and see what he comes up with in a bit. Jokes aside, the boundary a friend crossed was when she was dating someone and I woke up one morning, Central Time. She lived in the UK, so it was like 2 p.m. for her. So a bunch of photos of her in Discord. I was in awe at first because I'm a sly boy, but after a few seconds, I came to my senses. I thought to myself, what the hell? And started asking her as to why she did it. She had no particular reason, other than she thought it would be fun to do it behind her boyfriend's back, which quite frankly upset me greatly as I had a crush on her. I talked to her for hours after that, but she was keen on not apologizing, so I screenshot her chat, emailed her boyfriend, and let him deal with her in person. I refused to talk to her after that, even despite her efforts to make a couple accounts to annoy me. Hell, she even posted my private Discord, Skype, and Steam names and the internet after the whole ordeal, if that gives you any extra perspective of the kind of person she really was. Story 10. She told me, on my birthday, that she had been mad about me for months and then 3 days later slept with my boss. We're no longer friends and I'm no longer employed. Complicated situation. Not long before this, I caught my housemate, who I also worked with, going through my social media. Saw him walking out of my room when I got in from a run. Thought it was weird, so I set up a screen recording software. Lo and behold, he was reading everything and had the audacity to call me paranoid when I questioned him about it. I've moved back in with the folks since. So I guess you can call those two lines crossed by people who are supposed to be friends. If there's a lesson here, it's to keep your personal life and work life separate. I quit at a bad time due to my declining mental health, which was exacerbated by the aforementioned. Been a rough couple of months. Being constructive about it all, I picked up Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. I'd seriously recommend it to anyone down in their luck, as it's definitely adding a scientific or psychological context to why I feel so low right now. The steps I can take to regain control of my life. Story 11. Kind of a flip on the question, but I had a close friend. We were best friends. From 5th grade to junior year of high school. I had this huge crush on this girl named Jessica. Jessica and I talked and were pretty decent friends, and one day we went to the movies together and she came over to my house after the movie. Mind you, for at least 5 months, Jessica knew that my best friend, Jake, liked her and wanted to be with her. So she manipulated him, was dragging him on. No sooner than 5 minutes after getting home from the movies, she jumped me, and in my teenage hormone-fueled ways, we slept together. Literally the next day, she told Jake. But I honestly didn't think there would be an issue since he wasn't with her, but he just liked her. Within the month, I lost him, my group of friends, and my sanity. I was already super depressed after going through a super crappy off-and-on relationship, and this was the icing on the cake. I've tried to reach out to him to apologize, but he never replies. I haven't tried in 2 years now. I miss him and my friends, but I don't miss being a teenager. Story 12. Not sure if this falls under that, but my best childhood friend did something pretty bad to someone else in high school, and that led to me blowing up my circle of friends. There was a girl. She came from a broken, cruel, everything is fine on the surface, rich family. She had some problems with depression and PTSD. She had also been mistreated by an ex-boyfriend who's not otherwise part of the story. So this girl made a new friend in high school. She'll call this friend POS. POS was a good friend of my best friend. I'd hung out with him a few times, but we were just a friend of a friend to each other. The girl came to trust POS, and eventually, she told him all her dark secrets and pains and regrets. POS pretended to offer her support, then turned around and told his friends all her secrets because he enjoyed gossiping and being the center of attention. He also told them not to let it get back to her because then she would stop telling him secrets. One of the people he told was my best friend, and he told me. And that wasn't right. I told the girl everything I knew. Me, some random guy she had met only once before, knowing intimate details about her horrible family life. The stuff about her ex, everything. She was obviously horrified and felt very betrayed by POS. so she confronted him very loudly and publicly. The most drama I've ever heard of in real life. A lot of people already knew her secret, so I guess she felt she didn't have much to lose. Anyway, POS went into damage control mode and tried to spin it as me manipulating the girl to get into her pants and only making her think I knew all those things. Some people believed him. Some believed her. My best friend felt that I had betrayed him and sided with POS. This also made it hard to get along when we met up in the same circle of friends. So the end result was my circle of friends somewhat breaking up in the last semester of high school. I missed my formerly best friend for a while. I've never found anyone else with a sense of humor so similar to mine. But ultimately, I couldn't have not told the girl what was happening, and the fact that my friend treated it as just juicy gossip. Guess he wasn't a very good person. I'm not perfect myself, and I certainly regret the price I had to pay for that story, but I did the right thing. If I could go back, I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't be mad if I had stood by and let that continue. Story 13. I was friends with this girl, call her Anne, in high school. We were on the cheerleading squad together. Sleepovers, all that stuff. Another girl in our squad, Kat, had been friends with Anne since childhood. I didn't much care for Kat. I was not mean or anything, and neither was she. We just didn't interact much. New Year's Eve, we were all at this party. For the first time ever, we didn't have to be a designated driver because Anne had recently broken up with her boyfriend and said she wouldn't be drinking. I come to find Anne and she's plastered, laughing with a group of people. She tells me what's so funny. Kat's boyfriend videotaped them having intimacy and was going to show it. I had a what the hell moment. That's your friend. And just felt sick to my stomach. Luckily, I had noticed her drinking and stopped early on. I played designated driver and took everyone home. The next day, everyone was talking about the tape and Kat still didn't know. I couldn't handle it. I thought it was so wrong on so many levels. I went to tell Kat, which I have to say must have been great for her, being told that by a non-friend. Who you consider your best friend is participating in ruining your reputation. It just showed my friend's character. I just couldn't look at her with any respect after that. I let the friendship fizzle. It was the end of senior year. She married her stalker ex-boyfriend that summer. I saw her at the next year's homecoming game, Preggers. We're still Facebook friends, and she's tried to reach out a couple times, but to me, that event tainted her for me, and I just can't. Just don't get what benefit people like that get. Well, that's one way to start a new year. Story 14. I had a friend in high school. We're both female, who I had like 6 to 8 classes with during our sophomore year. During lunch, instead of sitting with her and our other friends, I sat with my guy friend, or FWB. She started getting mad and not talking to me, just straight up being mean. My other friend told me it was because I sat with this guy during lunch instead of her. Now, granted, the guy was a giant schmuck who I now don't have contact with, but she wasn't trying to save me from a bad relationship. It was extremely jealous. She took to talking about me behind my back, even making nicknames for me so she could talk crap about me. I honestly just stopped talking to her for a while. Eventually, she stopped her crap, but our friendship was never really the same. Turns out, once we graduate, that she's gay. And now it makes sense. Because of that incident and because she was always trying to find a way to touch me. Not intimately or anything, but playing with my hair or putting a shoulder on me or just randomly touching me as she went by. I don't know if she had a crush on me or was just discovering who she was at that time, but the whole situation just clicked several years later. We're friends again, but she now lives in the UK where she went to live with her girlfriend or fiancé, so, it all worked out. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 15. He refused to get help. He's been dealing with mental health issues and I always tried to be there for him in any way possible. Always had him over when he needed. Fed him when he had no food. Looked past his situation to offer help for years. He tried to end his life a couple years back. Went on psych hold for a few days, came back, acted like it never happened. A year later, he kicked out his then-girlfriend because it wasn't fair for her to deal with his problems by texting about 8 other girls. Again, I still looked past everything because he was my friend and had no one else but me. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. He's texting his ex, whom she and I have become close due to always having to deal with this dude's issues. Tells her he's out looking for a nice view to go out the way he previously tried to go out. Reaching out to him, trying to keep him calm and talking through whatever. Finally decided to get his family involved because he was a danger to himself. Turns out he was just messing with us and never even left the house. So he comes over to talk, throws a fit because no one came to see him or talk to him. When he clearly decided not to respond to whatever was said, had the chance to do a 30-day inpatient program but declined it repeatedly because he said, "I don't think it's going to work. He's not a medication. He uses grass, no respect for the plant, and swears up and down that it won't help him." Managed to talk him into considering the program. He leaves in a happier mood. Tells me he's going to call and see what he needs to do. Next day, I asked how it went. He said, I'm not going to go. I'm just going to work. I then decided to distance myself for a little while. I get a text next day. Hey man, I'm doing better. Want to hang out? I don't feel great due to stress with all of this, so I say I'm busy, but offer to hang out the following day. He rejects the offer. A few days later, asks to hang out again. I had a cold, told him my plate was full, and he told me no problem. A few minutes later, he throws a fit by telling me, I'll end up just like everyone else and get what you want from me, and I'll never see you again. All because I told him I was busy. At that moment, I realized everything I've ever looked past has been a mistake on my part. He's stolen from me. Only used me for my resources. He's made a pass on an ex of mine, which I didn't find out until a year after the relationship ended. Constantly cheated on his ex for my friend, and now recently started stealing from his sister and niece. That's just naming a few. 10 plus years of friendship down the drain. Story 16. I was in a cruel relationship for 2 years, and in the meantime, I had a strange friendship with a guy who knew my boyfriend at the time. We'll call him Charlie. Charlie would drive to my house and pick me up, and we'd go to the park or something. My cruel boyfriend at the time was probably screwing around with some other girl at the time, so he ghosted sometimes, and so did I. Charlie had a girlfriend too, and he would even take me to pick her up too. Obviously that's weird, but she didn't even seem to mind. I didn't have feelings for Charlie, and to this day, I'm unsure he had feelings for me. Why do I say that? Because Charlie would take me to church just so I could be with my now fiancé. Charlie also would take me to the park with my now fiancé. If he liked me, why would he do that? We were super close friends. He would pick me up every day and we would drive and talk. He even bought me a stuffed horse I wanted. He'd buy us pizza and we'd spend all sorts of time together. I even remember one night my depression was getting the better of me and I just cried on his shoulder while he pet me. It was very nice, but a bit odd too. He would always try to steal my phone and had the intention of not returning it. When it wasn't available to go places with him, he would get extremely clingy and talk down to me about my cruel boyfriend. The line he crossed was when he came into my house and started chasing me around the kitchen, threatening to take me. I got the idea that he wasn't playing even though we were both smiling. I was extremely uncomfortable. My mom heard him say he was going to take me and carry me out of the house. Mom went mama bear on him and kicked him out of the house. I haven't spoken to him since. Story 17. My best friend of 10 years. We grew up religious. I was actually her big sister or counselor at church when she was in middle school and I was in high school. We were about 3 years apart. We had a falling out for about 2 of those years. I got in a crappy relationship. However, we rekindled our friendship in late 2016. We both grew up into much chiller, less religious people, so we were able to get along again. Or so I thought. In 2017, she invited me to go to Vegas with her and her cousins for her birthday. At first, everything was fine. We drove down to Vegas, just the 2 of us. We got pancakes together, rode the rides in the top of the stratosphere, and I let her know I was going to be her party mom. I had a new boyfriend who was chill enough to be cool with me going to Vegas, and I really didn't want to get hammered and be stupid anyway, so I was totally okay with being the responsible one. She said that she needed the protection anyway, so I assumed it was going to be a good time. I realized she was a different person when I heard her doing stuff with her cousin in the bathroom before we took off to the strip. She then proceeded to ditch me several times at the casinos and clubs to try to score more substances from wealthy, single dudes, therefore leaving me to be pestered by Vegas creeps. I found myself walking down the strip alone at 3 a.m. back to my hotel. It was getting so bad that I called my boyfriend just so that if anything happened, I would have someone on the other line who would know where I was or what occurred. The next morning at 9 a.m., she had just arrived and was still wired from the stuff. I'd barely slept. She wasn't responding to any of my text messages all night, and I was super worried or guilty that something happened to her. She told me this long story about how her and cousins ended up at the hotel of one of the rich dudes from the club. Rich dude demanded intimacy in exchange for substance. When they both refused, it made the rich dude angry, so he tried to take it from the cousin by force. They ran and stole about $300 from him. They were chased down and nearly caught by this dude, but got away because they had a really helpful cab driver. She told me this entire story with joy and excitement, and not with the anxiety that I had just listening to it. The entire story just made me realize that me and this girl had nothing in common at all. There was no past or present that could even bring us together. I just looked her up and, oddly, or is this typical, she's still extremely devout or committed to the church we grew up in. She's a youth leader. Story 18. I had a friend who came out of the closet, and I was the second person he told. At least that's what he told me. He really appreciated how accepting I was and so happy I still wanted to be his friend. I was pretty honored that I was one of the first people he told and felt we became even closer friends after this. Then he started to change. A lot. His personality suddenly seemed to revolve around the fact that he was not straight, and that became a prominent part of his personality. That was fine. It didn't bother me until he started being really inappropriate in the way he would talk and act around us friends. And he seemingly tried pushing our boundaries at every chance he got to see how much we could handle. Example, he would be descriptive in what kinds of things turned him on. It seemed a lot of the times that he enjoyed making people feel uncomfortable by doing this. The moment he really crossed the line was one time the two of us were in a friend's apartment alone, waiting for said friend to get back from somewhere. He started asking me what my thing looked like. I told him to stop with that crap. I didn't want to talk about my thing, but he insisted. Smirking, he kept at the color part of it, asking me if it was pink. I told him to knock it off and that if he kept it up, I didn't want anything to do with him. So he just smiles and says, "You must be pink, Mr. Pink Guy." Did I see? I told him to take off and left with them calling me Mr. Pink Guy all the way out. Then he told people we weren't friends anymore because I was a hater who hated people like him. I lost a couple friends due to that as well. Story 19. Yes, one time we were out at the bar and he got super hammered, and for no reason at all, he picked up a bar stool and chucked it at me. I was then kicked out. As if that didn't do enough, upon last call when everyone went outside, he was sitting on these hardcore guys' car hoods. I told him to get off of it because they were coming out, and he didn't, so I started to leave. The guys saw me talking to him, jumped him, and then came after me. When they came after me, he started running away, and that's when they fired at him. I slammed my door and took neighborhood streets to get home without being possibly followed. I got home, locked my doors, and told my brother what had just happened. Right when I was done telling him, this massive pounding began on my front door. Great. The gangster dudes followed me home. Nope, it was my friend. Instead of running to his house, which was 2 blocks from the bar, he ran to my house, easily 10 blocks away, putting me and my brother in danger. He crossed the line and we had to have the talk the next day when he sobered up. Story 20. Years ago, when we were all still teenagers, a very close friend of mine spiked my drink at a party. He then proceeded to kiss me and take me away from the party to another secluded room to continue and try to kiss me. I was completely out of it by this point and didn't have any idea what was going on. Thankfully, 2 friends noticed I was gone and got him away from me, but that didn't stop him trying to come back into the room later when I was totally passed out, to do God knows what. I'm glad my friends were there, so nothing worse happened. The next morning, I completely lost it and screamed at him, ending the friendship. When I told my boyfriend, who hadn't been at the party, what happened, he broke up with me. This was years ago, so we didn't think of it the way you would now. He just thought I cheated on him. I eventually made up with a friend because I thought my entire friend group felt I was some girl that was tearing the group apart. It's only now, years later, that they've told me they would have never stayed friends with this guy if I hadn't made the effort to refriend him, which is something I regret now. I'm always uncomfortable around this guy and I don't like to be alone with him. It's been weird, but I guess it's okay. Story 21. It was nothing dramatic, or like a slow realization. There were a number of small but weird incidents. It made me realize she was a toxic person. One event that really stuck out to me was when she ran into my boyfriend at a club one night. I'd known he would be out that night, and he also texted me about their encounter the next morning. Said he ran into my friend and her girlfriends and brought them a round of drinks. Cool. A few days later, I was hanging out with her. I mentioned something about my boyfriend, and she goes, "I have something I need to tell you. When I ran into him at the club the other night, he cheated on you." I was shocked and rendered speechless for a few seconds, and she shouts, "Oh my God, don't cry." I wasn't even close to crying. Then I ask her, "What do you mean? You saw him go home with someone?" She says no. Did she see him kiss someone? No. Did she touch a girl inappropriately? What? She said she saw him talking and laughing with her girlfriends. Apparently that's cheating. I kind of laughed and dismissed her, in which she told me off for being in denial. It was like she wanted me to be upset about a non-issue, then got upset that I wasn't upset. It was a whole bunch of toxic behaviors like this that made me cut contact with her. Story 22. I excitedly told my friend about this date I'd been going on. It's the first time I did that because I actually thought it might become something serious. The talking went on and she tried to be funny by asking how I'd know anything about intimacy. I don't really talk about flings to anyone. And when I told her that, actually, I'm not pure since a long time, she said that the only way that could be true is if I'd slept with my brother. So I told her that she's not funny at all and got a bit snappy. However, she didn't apologize, so I will never forgive her for that. All she did was try and insist it's just a joke and I'm being unreasonable, so I told her that, well, she wouldn't be thrilled either if I made a joke about whatever STD she's caught now again. She was less than happy about that. Had it coming, though. Story 23. I had known this person for 20 or so years. He was a part of our extended family. Her brother ended up marrying my sister-in-law.
They'd lost both of their parents, and her family was her family. She came to every holiday dinner and birthday party. The kids loved her like she was an aunt to them. 3 years ago, after my husband had lost both of his grandfathers in the span of 3 months, we were going through a rough patch. My husband had closed himself off and her marriage was struggling. During this time, my friend decided to make her move. They carried on a physical affair that lasted 3 months and an emotional affair that lasted 2 years. Shortly after the start of the physical relationship, she abruptly stopped talking to me and blocked me in all social networks. I had a gut feeling, but I could never confirm anything until about a year ago. Since no one in our family knows the situation, she's still loved and welcomed to family gatherings. I haven't been to a function with my husband's side of the family in 3 years, and they all believe I'm a schmuck for staying away. Story 24. My really close friend since grade school was my roommate through college, all 4 years. There was this girl I met freshman year who I had the biggest crush on. We would hang out all the time and visit each other over breaks. She always had a boyfriend or was talking to some other guy, but they always cared for each other. She just wanted to be friends, and I accepted that. But it felt like I loved her, so I wanted to keep my hopes up. Fast forward senior year, and she's dating her ex again, which I told her was a very bad idea. But one of the bar crawls at her college who ended up talking about her dating her ex, and I can't remember the whole conversation, but we were basically not happy with each other. Well, she ends up meeting with my best friend, and they start making out, which really hurts to see. And later I found out that they went back to our room and had intimacy with each other. It hurt so much because my best friend knew how I felt about her, and he promised he would never do something with her. Also, she was such a morally right person I felt I could trust, but she cheats on her boyfriend and I can't trust her now. I can't trust my best friend the same way either. It hurts imagining them having intimacy, and not at any point did they think this would hurt the people around them. Next day, she said she was so sorry because she knew how I felt about her and how much that hurt me. I responded with, "Do me a favor. Don't ever talk to me again." I haven't talked to her since, and I'm still trying to salvage my friendship with my best friend. On a happy note, since I'm not focusing on her so much anymore, I ended up meeting a very beautiful woman and we've hit it off. I'm definitely happy with her in my life now. I can't say the same for the girl I had a crush on since she cheated on our boyfriend. Sure, he might have been a schmuck, but he was a good guy and people liked him, so not many people liked her after that whole cheating thing. Story 25. Apparently, I was the one to cross the line when I was defending a mutual friend. Little backstory to this. Went down the summer before my senior year. Our mutual friend had been online dating this guy. I didn't know much about him. The only interaction I had with him was a message indicating who I was and a playful, "You break her heart, I break your face." I got a very aggressive response back. Red flag goes up, but being young and stupid, I didn't say anything more about him to her other than he didn't seem like all that good of a guy. A few weeks before school started, I got weird messages from our private FB chat and a group chat that I shared with my friend and mutual friend. Things like, "This isn't a game anymore." Her mom had found out about this relationship and flew off her handle. This is when I learned that this guy was 22 to 23. Our mutual friend was 16. Obviously not good. Created a separate group chat from the first one, excluding our mutual friends because that was only her mom that was going to be talking. Some other friends started fighting with her mom about this, saying she had no right to go through her daughter's phone and message her friends cryptic messages. I was for this. Then I get a phone call from a mutual friend, sobbing her head off that their fighting was only making things worse. Could I please tell them to back off? I did, and they immediately attacked me. My best friend since kindergarten messaged me in a group chat, unloading all of this crap. Some stuff that had happened years ago and stuff that happened this year, saying I never defended her like I was doing with mutual friend, that I was obviously favoring her in my friendships, that at her going away party, she was moving in October, that after our mutual friend had left, I was off to myself and everyone else was still hanging out. I was off by myself, yes, but that was because I was still grieving the loss of a family friend, someone that I had looked up to. It carried on for 3 days. I sent the replies at night because I didn't want my mom asking why I was crying. It seemed like everything was crashing down around this happy group, because it was. Our mutual friend was AWOL because her mom had forbidden any kind of social media contact or texts. Fun fact, when her mom called me, she had called all of us. Since I was the only one that didn't fight her, I was the only friend that our mutual friend was allowed to talk to and was liked. The others, her mom still barely tolerates, and it's been like 4 years. The best friend, with her boyfriend at her on, I'm sure he was part of the issue, was yelling about me being a crappy best friend because I was trying to help my other best friend. I nearly ended myself in those 3 days. I was so wrung out emotionally and mentally, and I'd been almost pushed to a breaking point. There was never an obvious break. I don't remember the outcome of the messages and can't check because I deleted them because even a year later, I was rereading them. But she went to school with me, We hung out and acted like everything was normal. She moved, and by January, we weren't talking over FB anymore. She occasionally pops up now and then. We actually had gone out for dinner together a couple of weeks ago to see each other and to meet her son. It was nice, but I felt like there was something above her head the whole time. I don't know if I'll ever be able to discuss that fight with her. I don't know. Sorry for rambling. I don't even know if I stuck to the question correctly. This is just something that I still think about for years later and keeps me up at night.
What made you nope out of a friendship? I had known someone for years. We used to be office mates when we were grad students. We used to have great fun hanging out. We'd host and cook for each other, sip beers, watch DVDs, and chat until 3 or 4 in the morning about all sorts of crap. I'm a guy. She was a lesbian. It just didn't matter to me. We got on really well. She left the country for a while to work somewhere else. About a year after she left, I went to London for a friend's birthday party. And my old friend was there. Out of the blue, no warning. I was amazed and assumed she'd just turned up that night as a surprise for everyone, but no. It turned out she'd left her job overseas and had actually been back in the country for 6 weeks, and simply hadn't told me. Bless her. I was shocked. There's literally no way I would have reciprocated that sort of distancing behavior if the shoe had been on the other foot. I believed we were friends. Well, I believed we were pretty good friends. So, experimentally, I stopped making any effort from my side to stay in touch with her, and I haven't heard a thing from her since that very night. As soon as I stopped trying, boom. It turned out the other party wasn't trying at all. So basically the friendship was like a plant he kept watering, and as soon as he stopped, it turned out it was plastic. Ouch. Story 2. My kidneys failed. They healed up, then I got a funny-looking lab test a few months later. I told a friend, I think my kidneys are failing again. She sighed loudly and said, "And? What's that to me?" She'd just been complaining about her stupid, lazy coworkers for about half an hour, but she couldn't bother to listen to me. That was the last time I talked to her. My kidneys were okay, though. Story 3. When I was 11, my dad ended it all, and it was incredibly hard on me. Not only because I was a child, but also I was incredibly close to my dad and didn't know what to do without him. I didn't go to school for like a month, and when I did come back, my best friend at the time invited me to sleep over at her house. I went, thinking it would help, but I was still in that grieving stage where it was extremely difficult for me. Her parents, bless their hearts, were incredibly patient with me and overall just very kind. My friend, not so much. At the time, nobody knew what happened to my dad other than that he passed away. Nobody but my family knew he ended himself. I only knew because I demanded my mom to tell me what happened. I already had a suspicion that was the case. He was a drinker who would confide in me a little too much as a child. Somehow it got out, and everyone at school knew, but I didn't know that anyone else knew. We were playing Mario Party on our Wii when she just randomly said, "Is it true that your dad hung himself?" I was so shocked and angry that I didn't know what to say. I just remember saying, "I think I want to go home." With her response being, "Why are you still sad about it? It's been a month." And then I grabbed all my things and left without a word. She ended up telling people I cried the entire time at her house, which I remember her getting crap from that from my friends who knew my dad for a long time. I haven't spoken to her since. We follow each other on social media, but other than that, we don't speak. I'm still bothered, 10 years later, by how she acted about it. Story 4. This girl wanted to hang out and immediately invited me to a passion party, which I Googled and came to the misunderstanding that it was a party where people bring their toys to show everybody. It sounded super weird, and I didn't know how I felt. I just kind of ghosted her. Later, I realized passion parties are an MLM scheme, the which was trying to sell crap. Nobody brings used toys. I can only imagine what would have happened if I brought mine. Story 5. My boyfriend and I had an argument one night, and I was incredibly upset over it. So my sister invited me to come over to her house for the night because she and her friends were having a party. My sister is 8 years older than me, so I didn't see an issue hanging out with a bunch of 28 to 34-year-olds at the time. My boyfriend also knew about it, and he thought it would be a good idea for both of us to see friends or family for the night, to have some space, and we'd talk when we were both in a better mindset. My sister failed to inform me that the party was starting out as a passion party. She thought that if I knew about it, I wouldn't have agreed to come. There's absolutely nothing weirder than talking about toys and tasting flavored stuff with your older sister and all her friends, many of which I've known since I was a child. I do, however, regret not buying that orange creamsicle flavored stuff, though. Story 6. He was a user. His family had cut him off and cut him out. I'd driven him to rehab twice. The last time he got out of rehab, he had nowhere to go, so I said he could move in with me until he could find somewhere to live. Things were going well for him. Out of the blue, I got called away for work. I was gone for a week.
When I got back, everything in my apartment was gone, except for my guitar, which was my great-grandfather's and grandfather's before it was mine. At least he left me that. Never heard from him again. He's gone now. Story 7. She was flying to Ireland to meet some guy she'd become friends with online and wanted me to come with her so she wouldn't be alone on the flight. I said, sure, why not? I love traveling and I also don't want you to get harmed. The guy turned out to be both real and very nice, but she spent the entire time we were there putting me down in front of him to look cool. I didn't even like the guy. I was living with my boyfriend, but she was so threatened for some reason. By the second day of getting mocked relentlessly, I was like, screw it, and spent the rest of the trip exploring Dublin on my own. Once we got home, she and I had a conversation where I basically told her I don't think either of us thought that went well, and never talked to her again. Story 8. Took me years to notice because she showed me affection and encouraged me, telling me I need to be more confident. On the other hand, she loved to make fun of me, loved to hear about unpleasant things that happened to me, and I loved to make jokes about people I cared about. She loved to gossip. It was pretty subtle, just a joke. My ex brought it to attention how he doesn't like her because she's mean. He gave examples of her treatment of other mutual female friends. She made jokes about their insecurities while in public, or just talking aloud about things people were self-conscious about. If you feel bad about your acne, she would start talking about it at the party around other people. She would say how good you would look even though your skin is getting worse, but don't worry about it. It matters that you're a good person on the inside. It would help if you started eating healthy. You eat too much cheese. She would not care your crush was there or that comments like that at social events are just weird. After noticing her attitude, it felt uncomfortable being around her anymore. Story 9. She invited this guy she was chatting with to come hang out with us one day. She had a long-term boyfriend. Well, I was newly single. This guy and I really hit it off, so we started to spend more time together. When she found out, she got so mad. She told me that I stole my backup guy. Her boyfriend dumped her shortly after, and she demanded I stop talking to him so that she could start dating him as she had previously planned, insisting that he was her soulmate. I stopped talking to her instead, and so did he. That was 20 years ago, and we're still together. 15 years of marriage and 2 kids. Yes, he wasn't her soulmate after all. Story 10. I'm a therapist, and my ex-friend of 15 years took so much advantage of me and my knowledge. It got better when she got into actual therapy, where she made lots of progress and improvements. But every time we hung out, she'd only focus on her progress in therapy. I tell her all the time I'm not there for case management. I wanted a friend, and she'd give me maybe 15 minutes of space to talk about me before hijacking the conversation and always going back to her and her life. I started having issues in my own life and wanted a friend, but every time I reached out for support, she'd tell me she was busy and committed to other events or people and she could pencil me in weeks from the moment of crisis I was in. I snapped. I literally canceled paying clients to go support her in her moments. I reflected on the years of friendship, realizing she was never there for me. I threw her so many parties, I provided so many supportive moments for her. I rescued her over and over and over again where she was never there for me or saw me. I broke up with her almost a year ago. I'm still having moments of feelings or thoughts or regrets or emotions, and wanted to let her know all the things and how much she sucks. But I'm seeing it's not worth it. I'm trying to use my energy towards myself and thankfulness for the amazing friends and support people I do have. They're all lovely and true friends. Story 11. This was many years ago. I was still in high school, so somewhere around 94, I had this surplus waterproof ammo can that I liked. It was spun aluminum. I kept loose change in it. I suppose it probably had about $60 worth of change. I showed it to my buddy when he stayed at my house overnight because I thought the can was cool. In the morning, my dad was giving him a ride home. I noticed that the can was gone. I said to my friend, "Did you see where the ammo can went?" He said, "No." I said, "Did you take it?" He said, "No." I said, "If you need the money, you can keep the money. I just want the can." I ran away to my dad's car and left. I never trusted the guy again. My parents still talk to him sometimes. I refuse to. I want my can back. It's not like it was that expensive. It was just a weird thing that you can't buy anymore. Keep in mind that this friend also had me transport substances for him unknowingly, and that didn't bug me as much as the stupid ammo can. Story 12. There was a guy I met in college who was one of the funniest individuals I've ever met in my life. He was super quick, and his humor was insanely in sync with mine. We had all these plans. We were going to do some projects together. One day we were in one of our classes and I noticed he had a flag pin in his jacket. I said to him, "What's with the pin? Is it like a nautical thing?" To me, it looked like the flags you would see on a Swatch watch. You know, the kind that they hang from the boat in yachting. So he replies, "Oh, that's a South African flag." I'm a little bit suspicious, so I asked him cautiously, "Oh, are you from South Africa?" And he says, No, but I really admire the country. I really know how to keep them in their place. I reply with, oh, man, we can't hang out anymore. He looked at me and asked incredulously, what, because I don't like black people and you don't want to hang out anymore? To which I replied, yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And never spoke a single word to that dude ever again. Story 13. A combination of things, honestly. I get extremely anxious if I was told he was hanging out with the rest of us because he wanted things to go exactly as he planned, and he'd be upset if it wasn't. He'd usually end up pinning the blame on me and then constantly joke throughout the entire time about how I screwed things up, and I just had to go along with it. He'd constantly flake on everyone without saying a word, but if you had to cancel on him, he'd get extremely upset at you. One of my friends used the exact same excuse on him that he'd typically use on us after the fact, and he got mad. His family was pretty well off, while the rest of our families were working-class families. He expected us to spend money as if we had the same amount of money his family did. He'd get upset if you didn't. He felt like he had the right to monitor all of my social media accounts and to bring up comments made on said social media accounts as he wished. He'd bring up Reddit comments I made anonymously because I didn't feel comfortable talking about those topics in real life. On sites where I'd have my actual name or face attached to them, he'd wait for me to post anything and then make snarky, unfunny comments for the sole purpose of making me look bad. I ended up having to block him on everything and deleting that Reddit account. Whenever we'd play games together, if he was more skilled than I was, he'd make jokes about how bad I was and how I couldn't do anything right, which were really just thinly veiled insults. If I got upset, he'd tell me to calm down because he was only joking. I ended that friendship after 7 years, but it honestly ended 6 years later that it should have. Sounds like this guy's superpower is being a professional schmuck. Like, he could probably get paid for that. Story 14. I was dating a girl who was increasingly argumentative or unstable. One night she went through my Facebook messages and found a chat from like 4 years prior where I was telling a friend that I was going on a hot date and started an argument about it. It was the dumbest argument I've ever been in. By the end of the argument, she said we need to break up. Getting real sick of the constant arguing, I agreed. When I agreed, she barricaded herself in my bathroom and threatened to call the police, saying me and my roommates mistreated her unless we got back together. I agreed to get back together and told her we should cool off and see each other the next day. Thankfully, she went home. I went to her place to break up the next day with my phone recording the conversation and kept my voice calm and level. When I ended the relationship, she said she was going to call the police to accuse me and my roommates of mistreating her. I asked, why would you make that up and ruin 3 people's lives over a lie? And she answered something like, you might not have actually done it, but leaving me hurts worse than that ever could, and you don't deserve a good life. At this point, I knew I had some kind of protection legally since she admitted to making up the allegations she threatened. So I told her it's over, and to please not contact me anymore. She chased me out of her apartment, throwing things at me and hitting me on the way to my car, saying she's calling the police when I pull off. Thankfully, her mom was there and she said she'd vouch for me if she said I hit her. She only hit me when I left her room. I told her I recorded the entire conversation and had called a lawyer before I came over. This was enough to scare her out of making the false allegations. Over the next few weeks, I had my windshield wipers stolen 5 times, trash thrown on my balcony, and dozens of increasingly manipulative and angry texts sent to me that I didn't respond to. Didn't block her so I could save the texts. Moved to a new apartment, got a new car, not because of her. Hail damage totaled my previous one. Got an order of protection against her. She really taught me a lot about red flags. Lol. Story 15. I was mistreated and she really was with me through it all. She was my best friend. She held me at my lowest and was overall what I thought was a decent person. She let me get it all out when I found out he was blackmailing people to be on his side in the trial and when he was following me. I lost the trial due to blackmail and no get done, and of course, she gloated and she comforted me a lot. A year later, she called me and came clean. She testified for him and helped him get dirt on all the people that were going to testify for me and that she was sorry, but she did not think he needed to go to jail because he was young and made a mistake. I dumped her like she was hot. Story 16. Guy was a close friend of mine for more than a decade. All through high school, college, and her early 20s, they were friends, roommates, and practically brothers. One day, he casually drops a comment that he'd knocked the girl up. I started to congratulate him on his impending fatherhood, but he cut me off with a, nah, screw her. I'm not ready to be a dad yet. If she wants to have the kid, she can raise it herself. A decade plus of friendship ended that afternoon. Well, good riddance. Story 17. Back in high school, my best friend, let's call her Olga, and I had a crush on the same guy. Let's call him Sam. Sam was a flirt and was playing both of us without us knowing. Eventually, one day, he chose Olga to ask out and cut ties with me. As a good friend, I didn't make a big fuss about it, and although I was heartbroken, I respected their relationship. Olga was from an extremely Christian family. so she was not allowed to date in high school, which meant she had to keep her new relationship a secret. One day after school, I was home minding my business when Olga's mom showed up at my house. She was angry and was screaming at my mom, saying I was a lesbian and had corrupted her daughter. I had no idea why she was freaking out, as I had done nothing. Come to find out, my best friend was making out with Sam and he left her a huge hickey on her neck. She tried to hide it from her family, but they eventually found out and demanded to ask her where she got it. And this girl had the audacity, more like stupidity, to say that I had done that to her, that it bit her neck. Yeah, as if that makes it any better. Her mom, of course, thought this meant we were lesbians and came to my house to confront me and out me to my mom. I've never laughed so damn hard in my life when the mom told me the story. And my best friend left me no choice but to let her mom in on her secret relationship with this douche. After that, I never talked to her again, and everyone in the school eventually found out, which left her with a horrible reputation. Funny thing is, because Sam didn't choose me, literally a week later, I met the guy who is now my fiancé. We've been together 7 years and will be getting married fall of 2023. Story 18. She had a crush on a guy friend of mine. No biggie there. Plenty of my friends have dated each other. We were hanging out one day, and I went to change my son's diaper and left my cell on the table next to her. When I come back, she randomly says she's got to go and leaves. Okay, sure. I grab my phone and it's open to texts between me and that particular guy friend. I didn't have a password at the time. It scrolled back pretty far, too. I called her out on it. She said she just wanted to make sure he and I were really platonic friends and he and I didn't have a thing going on. You could have just asked. Nope, right out of that one. And we weren't in high school. We're in our 30s. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 19. I legit couldn't believe a thing he said anymore. He would constantly make up medical conditions that he apparently had. He would make up conversations he had with his doctor that would justify anything he said. Pretty sure he faked having cancer and faked going through chemo. The only medical condition I think he may have had is schizophrenia, just based on the number of absurd and unbelievable stories he would tell me about people following him or random people coming to him on the street to tell him he was a piece of crap human. He would tell me a story like that every day. But according to him, he couldn't have schizophrenia because his doctor diagnosed him with it and gave him medication for it that put him in a coma, so in his mind that was proof he didn't have it. He became weirdly obsessed with the idea of a romantic relationship with me, to the point where he said he was going to transition to being a woman so we could be together, because he knew I wasn't gay. Never mind the fact that I explicitly told him that I wasn't interested in being a romantic relationship with him. Oh, and I was, still am, married to my wife, who I had started dating 7 years earlier. My wife and I are very committed to each other and very happy together. We don't have an open relationship or anything like that. He would repeatedly accuse me of hacking his computer to steal the video game he was making. Not that I would have any interest in that or even the skill set to hack a personal computer. To be fair, I think his mom would tell him that I was doing that. He also would yell at me randomly for telling his mom I didn't want to be friends with him anymore, which I never did. So I think she was poisoning our friendship for some reason. We knew each other since we were children, but as we grew older, he never grew up mentally. He never had a job in his life. He never finished high school. He just lived with his mom and they smoked together all day, every day. To be clear, in a vacuum, I don't have a problem with people smoking, but if you become dependent on it and lack all motivation to properly take care of yourself, I think it becomes a problem. I wouldn't put it past him to stalk my profile. He knows my username, so Cody, if you're reading this, please get help. I care about you, but I can't be friends with you in your current condition. Story 20. We'd been friends since middle school, but I was always the odd one out. My jokes were never funny, my opinion never mattered. I was constantly made fun of and I felt lesser when I was with him. Fast forward to when I was 20 to 21 years old and I tried catching up with him again. Obviously, I'd already matured in a lot of areas and was not the same person I was in middle school. They kept treating me the same way as all those years ago. I tried to put limits, but they just kept treating me as a lesser one of their groups. I gave them the benefit of the doubt and noticed that whenever I was individually with just one of them at a time, they treated me with dignity and well, but whenever it was all of us together, they straight up changed their behavior and treated me like crap. At last, I got tired of feeling like crap. Since in all my other life areas I felt pretty good, and just stopped talking to them and responding to their messages. Of course, they accused me of being a bad friend, but honestly, I don't care. My life has made a 180 turn since then, and I don't intend to allow friends or people that treat me like crap into my life anymore. Screw them. Story 21. He just never helps himself, and it got too draining. 95% of all his life's problems are his fault and entirely within his power to fix, but he doesn't ever fix them. I'm tired of trying to help and watch him destroy his future. Hey man, you're good with money. Think you could help me figure out some stuff? I'm struggling and want to get things under control. Sure. First step is admitting you have trouble. Let's get together this weekend over a few beers and I'll teach you the basics of personal finance and I'll figure out a budget for you. You just need to stick with it. They never showed up to my place that weekend. Instead, I get a text. Hey, sorry man, I bought a new gaming PC and had to get it set up. Dude, this thing is so awesome. It only cost me $50 a month for 48 months. Didn't you just tell me you were struggling? Why are you taking on more debt? Did you even need a new PC? Well, no, but it was such a good deal, I couldn't pass it up. It was on sale for $1,500 or $50 a month for 48 months. $50 a month is nothing. So you're paying an extra $900, 60% over the sale price for a PC you didn't need while you were already struggling. Come on, man, if I wanted a lecture, I'd call my parents. I needed this to give me a break. Besides, you built a new PC last year. Unsaid. Yes, but I have $0 in debt besides my mortgage. I budgeted for 3 months to be able to afford it without financing, and my PC was 8 years old and well due for a replacement or overhaul. Sorry, Pat. I can't watch you fire yourself in the foot over and over and over again like this, and then listen to you complain about life all the time. You have the life you want because you keep choosing the life you have. Story 22. I had a friend, N, who never really had a personality of her own. It always swayed to whoever she was hanging out with or dating at the time. Had always been pretty liberal in the years I knew her, until she started dating a Glenn Beck-loving guy. Like, this dude seriously hero worships Beck. It's weird. Anyway, he seemed like a decent enough guy. They accidentally got pregnant early in the relationship, so she terminated the pregnancy. No judgment, you do you, boo. Then a few years later got pregnant again and kept that baby. She didn't work, but he had a decent job and supported them best he could, but they smoked a ton of weed and cigarettes, and so oftentimes would bum those or money for necessities because they would overspend frequently. And she got pregnant a third time and was going to terminate that pregnancy as well, but couldn't afford it. I'd offered to loan money. My boyfriend at the time offered money. They had literally nothing to contribute themselves because they owed their guy hundreds of dollars. By the time they had mooched enough for the termination, it was past the point they could. Mind you, she had no prenatal care that entire time. About 5 months along, because she wasn't planning on keeping him. It started to drift a bit after that kid turned 4. I was working crazy hours, bought a house with my now husband, etc., and we mostly communicated through Facebook. One day, she shared a post about how horrible Planned Parenthood was and the horrific things they do when they perform terminations, and I just couldn't take it anymore. She got government assistance for years, Medicaid, food stamps, the works. I constantly trashed others on social media for doing the same, and I could ignore it, but the termination post, knowing she had one and was going to have a second, broke me. I simply posted, pot, meat kettle, and blocked her. It's been over a decade, and from mutual friends, I've learned she hasn't changed a bit. Story 23. Best friend and I were going to move in together. We'd bought supplies and gotten things ready. The night before we were actually moving in, he called. Told me he had rented another place without me that day. Went through petty disagreements we had had, and then listed every single thing he thought was wrong with me. He even hit on the very private and vulnerable things I'd confided to him. I was heartbroken. Came out of nowhere. I didn't have any idea. A couple of days later, and for a while after, he reached out to apologize. He wanted to live on his own, for understandable reasons, but made it my fault so I didn't feel guilty about not realizing this and discussing it with me. He was sorry about everything he said and said he didn't mean any of it, but I wasn't interested in having anything to do with him anymore. Kinda broke me. It's been almost 20 years and I've never had a best friend since. I'm not really sure anyone actually likes me or if they're keeping a mental list of all my flaws and will eventually name them while telling me what they really think of me. Story 24. Going out for lunch at school. Walking to the local bakery, he quickly runs off in front of us and buys every single sausage roll the bakery has. Like 30 freaking sausage rolls. Puts them all in his bag, basically leaving nothing for us apart from the more expensive food. Sausage rolls were like 25p each. Other similar sized foods were about £1 each. After this, we started going to the bakery in the next town over. It took the full lunch break walking at a good speed just to get there and back, but the guy was super fit. He tried to come with us 2 or 3 times, and every time he couldn't keep up with our power walking and fell behind, meaning he had to go back to school alone without dinner. We were the only friends he had, and he was heavily pestered. Kind of feel bad for doing that to him, but he did it to himself by depriving the group of food for no reason whatsoever. Story 25. We met through a mutual friend. Hung out twice. He then tried to force me to quit my job and take a week-long vacation in Mexico with him. When I said no, he got mad at me. Ranted about money doesn't matter and then told me that poor people are lame. Little more depth on his character. Super rich kid. Parents spoiled him. Duh. Hangs out at clubs 5 nights a week. Paying for 2 different girls' apartments. Has no friends because he uses his money to force people to do whatever he tells them. Story 26. She was very controlling. I wasn't a 1D superfan, but I liked some of their music. She got angry with me because of that and told me we could only be friends if I listened to cool music like Slipknot and Rammstein. So I did it just to please her. She didn't attend school for some time and came back. She always asked people in her class who I was talking to when she was absent. She would get angry if she heard I spent a lot of time with a specific person when she was gone. When my social battery was down and all I wanted was to sit in a corner and read, she would get emotional and cry over me not paying attention to her 24/7. It was exhausting, especially for an introverted person. She would really enjoy watching me draw. She bought herself a sketchbook and told me to draw in it from now on. I was drawing in her sketchbook. She would get sad if I drew something in my sketchbooks for me, which is a pretty big deal if you're an artist, and art is literally the only way you express yourself. I would even say she was a bit obsessed with my drawing. She always asked for more, and she would beg me to give her one of my sketchbooks because she felt like the drawing I was putting in hers was not good enough. I ended up giving her one of my sketchbooks that I spent months on finishing. She loved it so much, she carried it with her to school every day of the week. When I remembered I had some pretty important sketches left there, I begged her to let me quickly photograph them for future reference. She got offended. I literally had to beg. I hated the way she made me feel, but I also knew she had pretty neglectful parents. So I decided to fake it till I make it to college and leave her on a positive note. I am in college now. She is too. Not so long ago, she called me and told me that I'm the only good thing in her life and she was thinking of ending herself. I was the only reason she pushed through and keeps pushing through. I feel awful. Story 27. She told me in my face that she saw me as competition. She was obsessed with surpassing me in many things. I stopped talking to her about my life years before I cut her out because I knew what she did to people who cut her out. Anyway, any conversation with her for a while was surface level and she wouldn't really care about anything I tell her. She told me in my face that she called the boss of one of her exes because she wanted to influence his workplace. I saw her ruin art projects in art school for students she didn't like. She would do temper tantrums to her roommates instead of having normal discussions. She was a walking red flag and would betray a lot of people. What made me do the last move and block her everywhere was when I told her I was a bit more distant lately because my mom was diagnosed with cancer. My mom would always open her home to her when she would have problems at her home when we were teens. She didn't care. She didn't even ask me if I was okay. She continued talking about her obsession about the Olympics as if I said nothing. I was her only remaining friend and she would not listen to her therapists and social workers. I'm worried for her still, but I've blocked her everywhere ever since for my own safety. Her life is probably miserable, but she dug her own grave. Story 28. He was a religious dude and always felt the need to warn people that they were going to hell for their various sins. Saving and converting was big for the church he belonged to. It was annoying when he did it to me, for not accepting Jesus as my savior. But when I found out he was going around telling gay people that they were going to burn, I just lost it. I wouldn't speak to him after that. Dude couldn't even figure out why. Later on, a mutual male friend told me he'd been propositioned by this person at around the same time this all went down. So it turned out he wasn't only a schmuck, but a hypocritical schmuck as well. Story 29. Dude got really aggressive with a friend of mine when she rejected his help with a problem she was having with her boyfriend. Went from, I'll sort him out for you if he ever touches you, to, I'll mess you both up, you stuck-up witch. And she didn't want any of his crap. When my girlfriend and I tried to get him to back down, he threw my girlfriend against a wall and threatened to put me through a window before I managed to talk him down. Dude was a bouncer and easily twice the size of any of the two of us combined. The girls both made a run for it while I basically told him, you're going to have to go through me if you want to go after them. And I know I can't stop you if you decide that's the way you want this to play out, but there are a dozen witnesses here and I absolutely will be pressing charges. I was convinced he was going to flatten me. Fortunately, it didn't go that way. It was a total Mr. Hyde moment. I'd never seen him act like that all toward anyone before, but that was the end of his relationship with basically everyone in their circle of friends. No one would speak to him again after that. Story 30. I had a dear friend from school I hadn't seen in a couple years. She moved out of state, plus the whole pandemic thing. We met up for dinner a couple months ago and she kept talking about her spiritual advisor, who she was meeting for a weekly session and who was helping her become psychic or something. She tried convincing me that she could communicate with her cats telepathically and that I could too. I tried to make a joke like, whenever my cat does something dumb like fall off the couch, I call him a dumb idiot. And my friend was like, oh no, he can understand you. So yeah, I don't know what happened to her, but she seemed to have gone off the deep end. My husband and I giggled about it later and even tested our psychic abilities by offering our cat 1,000 treats if he stood up. He did not. Well, maybe he just didn't want 1,000 treats. Story 31. She cheated on her fiancé with 2 different guys, and to avoid consequences, she falsely accused both of them of mistreatment. Know this for a fact. She'd quit going to college classes and her job a few weeks before and told her mom, who was paying for it, that the mistreatments were the reason why. Eye-opening experience. I told her mom the truth and told my now ex-friend to never contact me again. It helped me realize that I was always a friend to her and she was never a friend to me anyway. Something my actual friends had tried to tell me several times. Story 32. My best friend's partner, both guys, wanted me gone for the moment they got together 15 years ago. Tried to get rid of me in every way possible, creating an inhospitable atmosphere, forgetting to invite me to certain parties, telling my friend that I wasn't to be trusted and had ulterior motives, accusing me of having done and said things to him that I never had said or done, pushed me out of being my friend's best man at their wedding because he forgot that had already asked his own friends to serve as witnesses, and never were there any repercussions. My friend kept defending this behavior as not really meaning anything. Then, when I was going through a rather dark period and needed the support of my friend, his now husband actively tried to undermine the support he gave me, which ended up really damaging my mental health. I finally exploded in anger at the guy and stepped away from the friendship. That was 3 years ago. I permanently ended their friendship a week ago, shortly after my now former best friend, after years of them fighting it out amongst each other and the husband apparently having realized what he had done, tried to convince me that I should be the one to reach out to his husband because he still doesn't trust you. And it was just too difficult for the guy to reach out to me or make any step towards mending things. I let that sink in real deep and then said my goodbyes. Story 33. My friend used to go through my room and just borrowed what she wanted. She was a serial dater and constantly looking for new accessories. One day, she goes into my jewelry box and takes 3 diamond rings out and wears them and just loses them at some guy's house. Of course, she can't remember which one. A month later, she tells me that this happened and she'll be able to pay for them. She didn't even ask if she could borrow them. Thank goodness they were fake, but my dad did give them to me. There's no way she would be able to pay me back. No one in her whole friend group would let her stay the night. She did similar things to all of them. Story 34. Me and one of my best friends at the time got into an argument in the phone about something small. So small I don't even remember what. I made a comment about how he wanted to hang out every single day when I was the only one in our friend group with a car, but as soon as he got his car, it had been 2 weeks and he didn't want to hang out once. So I said something to the effect that I was just his friendly taxi. He was intoxicated and he just said, "Tell Danielle," my girlfriend at the time, "that I'm done helping plan your surprise birthday party." I never even apologized once he was sober. A few months later, we tried to hang out again, but it was different. He started turning into the new friends he hung out with, and I didn't like him anymore. Story 35. I had a friend who offered me a job at the start of the lockdown. She was my closest pal, and I thought it would be fun to see her at work. Although we maintained a professional workplace vibe, it was fun for a while. Flash forward around a year. It was my birthday, and I'd requested the day off to go hiking with my husband. 2 days before my birthday, she changed the schedule so she could take a 4-day weekend to go on a road trip. I was shocked. Not only did she specifically change the schedule with barely any notice, she scheduled me for my birthday and dropped out on her best friend's birthday. I gave a few months' notice, letting her know I wouldn't be working there after the summer. Immediate coldness. We haven't spoken since. Story 36. Watched her repeat the same pattern of rushing into something with a new guy when things with the old one had barely ended. The latest time it was someone I had previously dated, been intimate with, and had some reservations about. I let her know my concerns about him, but told her I'm not going to tell a grown woman who to date. Then she started canceling her plans last minute, saying she'd reschedule but never reaching out. Constantly posting on IG her lunches, dinners, etc. with other people. It was pretty obvious she had no interest in keeping me in her life anymore, so block, delete, move on. It sucks to see a multi-decade friendship end, but upon reflection, I'm not the first close female friend she's ditched after latching onto a new guy. It was just my turn to get the cold shoulder. At least I won't have to play therapist when this relationship goes to crap, too. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. Catch you in that video.